Look, do you see the spikes going up and down?
Oh, so we're recording.
That's fine. We're
There we
good.
go.
Had some technical difficulties in the
Try
past.
this again.
Want to make sure we don't screw this up.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back to the Pals Podcast for our returning listeners.
Hello.
For our new listeners, welcome. Did I just slur that?
I don't know, but I'll take it from here. My name's George Boutsalis.
And I'm Ricky Liordi.
And this week we had Sidewalk Hustle.
Yeah, our good pals Tristan and Hawley.
Take it away.
They started a fashion/music blog, Sidewalk Hustle, years ago, about a decade ago, just over. Now it's transformed into a complete lifestyle blog, and a little bit more than that. They are amazing.
So like lifestyle website more so, yeah.
They are amazing digital marketers, writers, fashion enthusiasts.
Photographers.
Yeah, basically a little bit of everything.
Avid music fans.
Videographers.
Everything.
Creative directors. Yeah, just great people. And some of the craziest, actually arguably one of the craziest stories we've ever had on this podcast.
Yeah, it's honestly, and there was a lot of tangents we went on, and a lot we didn't even have an opportunity to dive into that really would have taken this thing for another whole other dimension. But you know, considering we went, the episode's about 2 hours long. I mean, we could have gone for 4 hours. It was some of the craziest stories. Tristan, Hawley, thanks for being great guests. Look forward to having a part 2 and catching up. But guys, give it a listen and check out Sidewalk Hustle.
Yep. We'd like to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, Cottage Springs. They make some of the greatest vodka waters, vodka sodas out there. Definitely check them out at your local LCBOs. 0 carbs, 0 grams of sugar. We've said it on this podcast numerous times. Some of the best drinks we've had. They just actually released a new raspberry lime vodka water and a new vodka lemonade. So check those out at your local LCBO or check them out online at Cottage Springs.
That vodka water, by the way, is in like a 4-liter box or something.
Yeah.
That thing looks like a good time. Can't wait to
definitely
bust that
gonna-
up for the cottage.
Oh, yeah.
Want to give a shout out to RFP Design, our good friends, and our pal Andrew Moretti. They were gracious enough to donate to provide us with this incredibly beautiful couch that has really made our studio space and our online video pop a lot more. They make custom furniture. They do custom beds, custom couches, custom chairs, custom dressers. Anything you need for your house,
Custom.
that they can make it. Andrew is not. He is a serial entrepreneur and one who is not shy to take on any new task or project. Nothing's too big or too small. They got to be one of the fastest growing custom furniture manufacturers in Canada. Shout out to them. Shout out to the team over there for making this amazing couch. Shout out to Andrew. Go check them out, guys. www.rfpdesign.com and let them know the pal sent you. And I guess last but certainly not least, give a shout out to Cast, our baby and the newest and hottest social voting platform. Also no social media, but we're trying to get away from that because we're trying to be a little more objective. And what we're trying to do is be the objective assembly of public opinion. How we do so is we remove the friction of participation in online conversations by allowing people to be honest, authentic, unique, objective, and just downright curious. We eliminate the social pressures. We eliminate the influence. We eliminate all of those things that would skew someone's opinion in order to deliver fully objective and transparent results to our users and let them think for themselves. Because at the end of the day, everyone should think for themselves. I think that's about it. Go to joincast.co. to download now. We are in beta, but the app is still fully functional and is up and running. So get on there now to get your usernames and start casting today because it's about to blow up. My pal, LFG. Let's go.
How long you guys been doing this?
Check.
Since 07?
It's 07, 08. It actually started as a are we
podcast.
going? Maybe
Well,
save
it'll be a
this
roll.
for
It'll
the-
be a rolling start. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Pretty much started.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We're rolling.
Yeah. Hey, wait. Yeah, we started it. I started as a podcast. So, man, I tell
This
stories.
is a good story.
Yeah.
We
And I
love
tell-
told this a
This
couple
actually
times.
might be the first time he's actually told it like officially to anyone. So.
Yeah, like else, like not on in person. All right, cool. Yeah, so way back when. So we met in university. I was York.
Okay.
So I was these stories will just keep going further back to the Big Bang. So I grew up in Toronto. I'm Tristan. Hey everyone. I grew up in Toronto, and one of my first jobs was at the government nightclub. And if you're from Toronto and of a certain age, then you know the government nightclub. So it's like one of my first jobs. So I had this weird like being a teenager in Toronto situation where like I could walk into like concerts and like clubs at like 18 and hang out. Like I hung out at clubs. So I had that life, and I needed to like have it change because Toronto. So that would have been like early 2000s. Toronto is just like a lot, and I was having my own personal existential crisis. So I moved. I went out west to Lake Louise to like work at the chateau there, and I basically spent the summer like not sleeping, like and like just like looking at the most beautiful like setting on earth, like Canada, and just working and reading and trying to like better myself. But like at 19, I wasn't like trying to better myself. I just like didn't want to be in Toronto anymore because it was hot, like emotionally. And so after doing that, like I kind of like through some other things, just like kind of I guess found like a sense of personal zen. So I came back and to Toronto and spent a summer here, and then moved to Vancouver for a couple of years. And again, being close to the mountains, I found it really like inspiring. Like someone who grew up in Toronto, the tallest thing, like your reference point always is the CN Tower. And so like it was pretty incredible to all of a sudden have a reference point that was like the mountains. And that stuff I found personally humbling because it kind of was like, oh yeah, like although I'm a human and I'm amazing, like the situation is like beyond me. Like there's I wouldn't say God because I don't necessarily believe in God, but like I definitely like there was something sublime where I was like, oh, I understand myself. So blah blah blah. I eventually came back to Toronto because I needed to finish my degree at York, and I met Hawley. And and so I took
in modern Canadian poetry class.
Modern Canadian poetry class.
Very unsexy place to meet.
It sounds.
We just say poetry class when we tell the story, like the shorter version,
Yeah.
like poetry class, and everyone's always like, "Oh,
Oh, where'd you meet? Poetry class. Like, oh, of course, that's so romantic. But really, it's like modern Canadian poetry class, which is still cool. But modern Canadian poetry, Canada, it's an amazing place. Not to talk politics, but like our like waves of immigration have always been. You know, you have to want to be in Canada, especially 150 years ago. Like people were leaving Russia and then like coming to Canada, and the government's like, cool, you're going to go to like Alberta because it's freezing out there, right? And they're like, yeah, that's cool. It's better than, you know, Tsarist Russia. So modern Canadian poetry was like a lot of like cold winters.
No one cares about that.
Dark nights. Okay. So we met there, and because it was so riveting.
I was trying to scam a pair of Massive Attack tickets from him. I overheard him talking with like a friend. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to go. Oh, man, I just spent so much money on concert tickets. And I was like, oh, sick. I love Massive Attack. Like, maybe he has an extra ticket. And, yeah, I don't know. We ended up talking, and, like, I gave him my number. And he was like, hang on 1 second. I'm just going to call a friend. I was like, what? Who the fuck leaves in the conversation? Like, in the middle of the conversation. I was like, what are you doing? And then he comes back and he's like, oh, sorry, I was just calling my buddy Matt, like, because, like, Matt's, you know, he's always got, like, you know, his ways of finessing. So, like, I wanted to see if I could get you a ticket, but I couldn't. And then I was like, okay, well, here's my number. Like, call me if anything changes, basically.
Yes. And it never, because Matt also worked at, like, the government nightclub. And, like, again, we went to Jarvis Collegiate downtown. So, like, just, like, being part of the scene, like, he knew people. So I was like, hey, if you get a ticket, and, you know, he and I both love Massive Attack. So we were going, and there was a ticket. But after the show, I ended up calling Hawley, and we talked for, like, most of the time.
Called me the same, like, a day later. It was like, I don't know if the 3-day rule is a thing anymore. I've been, like, not single for such a long time. Like,
I'm the worst. I'll text right away. Triple text, don't care.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Yeah.
It's honest. So yeah, I met Hawley and we started dating, and then we kind of like it was really quick. Like we've been together. This is like our 15th year.
Congrats.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. And just like it kind of happened really quickly. So we moved in together pretty quickly. And at the time, I worked for a bank. I won't name it. And I was a teller. And I was finishing my degree that I'd come back from.
Drink some water.
That I came back from Vancouver to like, because
Stop talking.
The reason I left. Nah, sorry. The reason I left.
This is talk all you want. This is what we're here for. The more you
man.
talk, the better for us.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh man.
We love stories.
Bro, I love telling stories.
This is perfect. Match made in
Yeah,
heaven.
Tristan was a bank teller. I moved into an apartment in Rosedale that was like kind of like the shady part of Rosedale. I got like a crazy deal, and like I was working as a florist at the time, still going to York, paying for my degree. And I moved there because I was like, I can like walk to work when I want to go to work, and then I can just like jump on the subway and go to school at the same time. And yeah, I guess like a month in, I realized, oh fuck, like I can't really afford this myself. And we were already kind of seeing each other, and I was like, you should just like, it just kind of like happened where he just like kept staying there, and I was like, maybe you should start paying rent, like possibly.
Which was fair.
And and then I went away and like visited my friend who was living and studying to be a rabbi in Israel, which was like kind of strange. And then I came home after, and he was there, and he had like bought a duvet and like changed the shower head and like did a bunch of like sweet things to kind of make it home. So for me, that was like how at the time, the moment I knew, it was like
That was the moment you knew.
yeah.
Because I did some stuff around the house.
Yeah.
Let
It's
that be a lesson to
she's the
everybody.
freeloader.
That's right.
It's fresh sheets.
Yeah, fresh sheets.
Fresh pillowcases.
Yeah.
And a shower head.
And a shower head. It didn't take much back then.
Yeah. Yeah, no apps to have any point of comparison. Thank goodness.
God, I don't know what I would do.
Okay, so this is what, around 2007?
So this is around 2007-ish. Yeah. So
Holy.
yeah, the 9-minute conversation we just had is just leading to the question you asked, so I can start telling that. Yeah, so I worked at a bank, and we were finishing our degrees, and I was unhappy, obviously, whatever, just like, oh, and then I got robbed at the bank at gunpoint,
No.
and that kind of left
What?
me so that haha.
Let's can we hear this part? Wait,
Sure.
Can you
This
tell
is
us
the
what
actual
area,
story.
What area? Like, I don't want to maybe
Yeah,
get too
yeah.
detailed, but it's like downtown. Is it something like?
Well, so yeah,
Well, we lived in Rosedale,
lived in
so it was
Rosedale.
like close to Rosedale.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rosedale's a relatively nice neighborhood.
Not
Very well-
in Rosedale, though.
But it was like the peripheral of Rosedale. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
still Rosedale. But like
The outskirts.
we were riding the bus to get in because there's only one road in really, and we rode the bus with the nannies, right? Like
Yeah.
and like maybe the kids who went downtown. That we weren't like anyway.
I'm sure there were not in it. Maybe you should edit that part out. But I'm sure there were like totally normal
Yeah, I
humans
know
that
what you-
maybe are
yeah.
like of a more affluent demographic.
Understand what you mean.
Also riding the bus sometimes because
Sure.
you know.
But
Anyways.
yeah, Rosedale is a very affluent neighborhood, right?
For sure.
In Toronto, it's got a high property value. So we lived there, and I could actually walk to the bank I worked at. I'm not going to name the bank's name, but I could walk, and so they were on like I think it's Leaside. Yeah, so basically between Rosedale and Leaside, two very affluent neighborhoods. This branch of the bank I worked at was like what was called a neighborhood bank. So it was like tucked away. It would be like multi-generational. Like the grandfather would come in, then like the son who owned like a business, Europe-bound a business, and then like his son would come in like all in a day.
Yeah.
Right. It was very like community-oriented. And one day in the exams of like in April, as it was like a rainy day, it was gray, overcast, but it wasn't raining. And I'm a hilarious guy who tells long ass stories. And I was cracking jokes with like my manager and the two other like my colleagues who worked the teller. And then like I was talking to my manager in her office, and the door was a sliding door, and the way like you could always hear it open. You're like, oh, the door's open. And so I just turned around and I like went to my station, and I was watching this guy walk in, and as soon as I saw him walk in, I was like, I just like I don't know, Sixth Sense, or just like you're like okay, like he wasn't a killer clown with a chainsaw, but like I looked at him and I was like,
He
this
had
is
a wig on and like he had a hood and
yeah, it was
know,
so it was
typical.
a gray day, but he had the hood on, the like tracksuit nylon. He had like sunglasses on. Again, it's gray, and he had like this beard, and he walked up, and he like there's like a little ledge, so you can't. So as a customer, you can like fill out your stuff without the teller like seeing your stuff. But so he like pulled out like a little like what maybe I would say is a toiletry bag you take on overnight trips, and he like clunked it down, and it was like heavy, like boom, like oh man, that's not a toothbrush.
There's a gun in there.
That's not his checkbook, right?
Oh
It's a
shit!
dental
There's
floss
a gun in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Oh, this guy's serious about oral hygiene.
He's got 4 battery-powered toothbrushes in that thing. Actually,
Have you been flossing?
Ricky probably has that in his.
Yeah. Oh, you're
This guy
serious
is crazy
about
about
it?
his brushing his teeth.
My
Okay.
toothbrush, my toiletry bag.
So if Ricky walked
Okay.
in, you might think that he would have
Okay.
a gun, but really it's just 4 toothbrushes.
Okay, so my advice is don't bring your toothbrushes to
the bank.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or don't lead with that. So he clonks it down, and I'm just like, oh man. And he unzips it, and he like pulls out the top of a gun, like a handgun. And he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he
Is the glass bulletproof or no?
there's no glass.
There was no glass at
There's
that
no
point.
glass.
Oh,
Like
I
this
just
is
think
not.
with banks now because of the
Yeah, this
the
is like
glass
pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Even with clothes
Glass.
are plexiglass.
Yeah,
You just
I
put a
know
knife
that.
through those.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
so long.
I don't
that
even think there
cuts.
was.
I
It
don't
was
remember
just
the last
like
time
the
I
little
walked
ledge and
into a
the.
bank.
No, but I don't remember the last time I walked into a bank. I didn't see the glass. I just always assumed it was there.
Oh,
For
yeah.
that split second
Oh,
when I asked
often,
that
yeah.
question.
I feel
Yeah.
like the old school banks used to have that, right? Like the really
I'm
old
just so
school
used to
ones
between the
downtown
movies I've
with, like,
seen
the-
lately,
Yeah.
and the fact that every time I've been in the bank for the last year, there's been plexiglass. I just completely forgot that there was no glass before that.
Oh yeah.
And I don't
Wow,
even think that's
crazy.
bulletproof glass. That's
No,
probably
no,
just
that's
like
plexiglass.
that's just
Yeah.
like
You can punch through it.
sneeze guard.
protective
Yeah.
COVID
Yeah.
glass. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Continue.
So yeah, he popped it down and he unzipped it and pulled out like the top, so the barrel, and I could see it. And I'm looking at him, and I can see he had a beard and it wasn't real. And you can see that's a fake beard. And he's like, "Hey, I want 6 swipes from the machine. If you call the police or put an ink pack in it, I'm going to shoot you in the face." And I was like, as a side note, more reference, when you are working at a bank, they do train you for this. And the woman who was training us was like, "Hey, this is highly unlikely to happen. It's rare, but you are dealing with money, so you are more at risk than others. So we're going to do this." And she mentioned, she's like, "Oh, one time at lunch, I went for lunch and I came back and the police were there and I didn't know what was up. And it was because the bank got robbed. And my friend was the teller and she was off for a month. She had to do counseling and all this. And I remember being like, yo, a month off paid with free counseling? Who wouldn't want that?" Right? But in the training,
Optimism.
right? Well, making light of a situation, that actually taught me a life lesson to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Or to make when you put something out into the universe, make sure it's intentional. Don't always be a smartass. It's hard.
But to be fair, that wasn't the first time you've had a gun put in your face.
And that wasn't the first time
seen
I had a gun put in my face.
This is okay. Let's finish the first story.
Tristan grew up in Toronto, so
So,
he's seen a lot and in not good neighborhoods.
And as some reference. Anyway, sorry, I lost track. So yeah, the woman who trained us was like, but she also said what you need to do in the training is you just act like it's a normal customer and you explain what's happening so as to normalize the situation. Don't put anyone don't make them uneasy. So when he said, "Or I'll shoot you in the face," I was like, okay. Now the swipe part, oh man, context. That money isn't kept in the drawers anymore. So money is kept in these dispensing machines. So when you go to the bank, and why would you actually do this in person?
Yeah, they don't have the drawer full
Yeah.
of cash. Oh, some of them do, but now I'm really aware when I see that. I'm like, oh, you have the drawer
Yeah,
here?
that's-
Wow, you guys must be really okay
some
if you get
old
robbed.
school.
No problem.
Yeah. So you have to go to a machine, and every employee has a card. It was gold, and you'd swipe it in, and you could take out $1,500 is the max in cash, and you can do it 3 times per your employee card swipe. Okay, so
Unless you're the manager or something. You
even
probably
still,
have-
they have to be overridden. It's just a robbery prevention thing, and it works. So if I'm doing 2 swipes, and I that was my third because I did it an hour ago, I need someone else to co-swipe it. And usually in that, you've explained to someone. So he already knew because we had 2 machines. I want 6 swipes, right? And and I was just like, okay, so he knows, and no ink pack or whatever. I'll shoot you in the face. And I was like,
wasn't there a little button? Isn't a little?
there's no little button underneath.
Button?
That's what I was
either.
going to
No.
ask.
There's no little button. I think there is one in the cash counting. Again, this is now about 15 years ago, the origin of the question. And I think there's one in there because if that would be a more intense situation. And again, back to the training, she said, the woman who was training us, don't just give them the money because they'll never get enough money, and your life is worth more than the money. But also, we're so insured, we're fine,
Doesn't matter,
right?
yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, cool. So he said that to me, 6 swipes, I'll shoot you in the face. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll be right back. I have to go do this. So I went over and I swiped from the machine twice or 3 times, and it dispensed. So $4,500. And then I went and did 2 more on the next machine, and then it errored. And then my heart leapt through my chest oh, fuck me. Right. So then one of my coworkers, whose name I literally have not thought about until this moment, because I guess it's up, Monica. She walked by and I was like, "Hey, Monica, can I just get an extra swipe?" And she was like, "Yeah, sure." Boom, and swiped, and I was like, "Okay, thanks." And I went back and I handed him the stack, and I was like, and again, because I'm in automatic response mode, you count out the money to show,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, "Okay, well, here you go." And I was like, I guess you
I
actually
guess you
don't
know,
need me
yeah.
to count it, right? Because I'm still kind of making light of this, whatever. And then he takes it, and it's a stack. So 45 times. So maybe 9,000. Later, the police told me he only got 7 or 8. So I guess I didn't put it in. But 9,000, and a stack, and he peeled through it like you would a magazine, through a
To
book.
check for the die
To check for
pack.
the die pack.
This guy knew exactly what he was doing.
Then he tapped it on both wrists. I don't know, superstitious, or again, checking for the die pack. Then put it away, zipped up the gun, turned around and walked away. And as soon as he left through the door, squeak, turned, walked, out of my sight. I waited, turned back to my manager and was like, we just got robbed. And she's like, you're so funny. And I was like, no, we just got robbed. And then she was like, oh crap, hit the button. And the police were there less than 3 minutes later. That guy robbed 2 other that day. Boom, 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 boom.
You just revealed the name of the bank, even though you were,
I clued in on
you
that
were
too.
trying so hard not to say it, but
Okay.
like, I mean, it's kind of cool because like now we work with them in
Well,
like
yeah.
a different capacity. Which
Okay,
is
okay,
kind of
I wanna get back to this.
So then he zips off and robs 2 other of the same banks. And that day in Scarborough, another bank of a different brand also got robbed, but the police shot the guy when he was leaving. So I don't know if it was like a full moon bank robbery day or anything, but like that was it. So that happened. Cops were there 3 minutes. They interviewed me. That's fine. Then another guy interviewed me, and then so I got interviewed 3 times, the detectives. And the crazy thing for all that was like the cop was like, oh, I used to work at TV. Like, oh, my brother works at TV, or like whatever, my family works for, like, fuck.
I gotta bleep a lot now.
Sorry.
It's okay, I can bleep them.
My family works for this bank as well. But he was the officer was like, you what you did, like, you did the right thing. He's like, it's crazy. And then I made a joke, which I always thought, which was like, who robs banks anyway? Like, you can't get enough money.
Yeah.
And the detective
for
and
under 10 grand. That
Yeah.
seems like you could get there
well, and
a different way.
the moment you say you have like a gun, like whether you do or you don't, your sentence will go up. The repercussions for that are higher. And you know, robbing banks. But with deadpan, the detective was like, yeah, robbing a banks is usually for poor, desperate people. If you really wanted to make money, you would just defraud the bank, because often you'll get away with the money. You won't even do any jail time. And I was just like, okay.
What a day that was.
Okay.
I remember when he called me and I was like, are you fucking serious? Like,
No.
what? Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I guess you got some time off now and some free therapy.
Yeah. So be careful what
He
you
now
wish
has,
for.
but he now has free therapy for life.
Okay.
Like it's totally government
This
funded.
is jumping like I'm trying to keep up. I don't even know how we got on this topic to begin with.
The
This
question
is the
was,
origin
how's the
story.
tell us how it started?
Yeah.
This is the origin story.
origin
It
story.
all feeds
Yeah.
into this one small moment of the
Holy
story.
cow.
Do you know why they always make a Superman movie like Spider-Man over and over again every couple years? Origin stories, bro. Origin stories.
I agree.
Ooh.
So this was, let's call still
Let's say
2007.
2007.
Okay.
A lot happened.
So yeah, it was a big year. My mom also was diagnosed with a really bad illness that like still to this day, so autoimmune, so you know, COVID and blah blah blah. But that was a big year, and I basically, understandably, I'd come back from Vancouver to finish my degree because I realized I needed to finish it, if nothing else, to get my mom to stop saying finish your degree. But I knew that because when I was out in Vancouver, I'd gotten as far as I could career-wise without a university degree. Not saying anyone since then has ever asked to see my university degree, but you know, I understood the game I had to play. So that was all happening. The bank robbery happened. I wasn't really into it. I had to do trauma, PTSD counseling, which was fine. It was over the phone, and
You weren't like traumatized though. I think that like you need to also note that like, you know, Tristan grew up at like River and Gerrard. So like, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't, and that's still not really a good neighborhood these days. And like, to me, I grew up in like border of Etobicoke, Mississauga area. That would now, I mean, sure, there's hard shit happening there too, but like that would, to me, I was just like, what? And like, still sometimes he'll let out a story like from back when he was a kid, and I'll just be like, whoa, like,
Yeah.
shit.
It's
you know?
funny you mention that because so George's brothers had an experience kind of
Make sure
similar.
the mic's a little closer. Like put it up
Yeah.
to your mouth because it's a little bit quiet there.
George's
Yeah.
brother had a similar situation with something like that, and then even my grandfather back in Brazil had a similar situation happen. So kind of, I don't want to say it happens more than you think, because like I've never even seen a gun outside of like police, army, and stuff like that.
Yeah, me either.
Or like
Never-
in Europe, you
yeah.
kind of see them, but here I've never seen
Yeah.
one in a negative manner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like at that point, it was like I was in school for like English journalism, and I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And like he was in English history and like just finishing his degree, and I had another year to go after that. Did I?
yeah, you had another
Yeah.
year after me.
And like I think we were, I mean, not that we were trying to like search for what for at that point. Like I think I went to school because I was like, oh cool, I did well in English, so I guess I'm doing that now. Like just didn't really have a plan. And this was kind of like a fever dream moment for him, where he was like, what is the mark that I'm going to leave on this world? What is my purpose? You know, why the fuck am I here? And if it takes that like traumatic moment to kind of like spur that, yeah, you should talk about that.
Yeah, so that basically to
Tee
be
it up.
that it was a tough year, and while not to trivialize anything or like make light of it, I do that. I make light of things and move on, and I've had to do some stuff. So the bank robbery, like the gun thing, like it wasn't I wasn't quote unquote traumatized in, I guess, a traditional sense of like loud bangs and noises like that. Like I will say and admit, and I think I've only ever admitted to my therapist, maybe Hawley, but I was like, for the first little while after that, I was worried he would come back and shoot me in the face. Not like for real, because I knew, but I was just like, oh man, like I think from a day-to-day basis, people aren't like, oh man, that guy one time who said he was going to shoot me in the face, maybe he will come back and shoot me in the face. So
but he got arrested
did
like
eventually
right
get
away.
caught. Yeah.
Like it was like a quick resolution, so you weren't like,
No, it was
you
like a
know,
couple
and they
weeks
weren't
later.
like, see you tomorrow after like the end of the
Yeah.
day. They're like, okay, you take the week off.
Yeah, I had time off and not being traumatized, but like I didn't feel comfortable. And while, as Hawley mentioned, it wasn't the first time I was in a situation where a gun was put in like my face. It was the first time a gun had been put in my face for a job, and also for a job that I fundamentally had like problems with, like the way in which they did business, especially at that branch, because again, it was a multi-generational, very affluent, two very affluent neighborhoods. I saw like grown, like millionaires, like grown ass men, like make these like teenage women cry because they were charged $1.50 like interest, and they were just like, "How dare you?" I saw the whole, and then I saw on the flip side like a single mom, you know, who was getting like charged like $30 in NFs,
Yeah.
like because we were bouncing in, like the bank was like, all of them were designed to like prey on that, as all the whole system is, but to prey on that. And like and I just was like, I was raised by a single mom, right? Like I couldn't. So when someone
that's
was
some
like, I'm gonna
sad
shoot
shit.
you in the face because of like what you do, I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. And so I did have these epiphany moments. What am I doing? What am I doing? And I had I had a month off, and then I was supposed to go back to my job, and I did. I went in. How you doing? Oh, great, yeah, good. And I went to like my position, and I served one customer, and I was just like, no, literally, there's zero time in my life anymore for this.
I mean,
And
you never were like doing that as a career.
No,
Like,
it
you
was
were-
a good
it's just
university job.
Yeah.
And it is a good university job, and I have friends, you know, like whatever. This is me personally. I turned to my boss and I was like, hey, I quit. And they were like, what? And they actually wouldn't. Shout out to the bank. They wouldn't let me quit because they were worried that I was going to go and do something crazy due to like what had happened to me. And whilst I wasn't traumatized, it did have a giant impact. So in all that, I ended up going back to work for the bank in a different capacity for a little while later. But it was the last time I got sick, like a fever. I had a fever dream. And in my fever dream, I was working in the bank, the next position I was in downtown. And I also, the job I had was like in insurance. So I kind of saw like health stories, like it kind of like, and so I had this thing where I had like, oh man, I'm going to die. Like I'm dying. But I was at work and I was telling people that, and they're like, that sucks. Oh, well, what do you want to do for lunch? And I was just like, no, like this is my dream, right? I'm like sick. So I wake up and I was like, okay, hell no. And so at that point too, I went and was like, I'm quitting. And they were like, why? I'm like, because you're an evil empire and I won't be part of it because I'm honest. And I think when they heard that, they're like, oh crap. Like this is back to what happened. Like this is him like going off the rails again. And again, in a way, I kind of was going off their rails, but I was like, I'm not doing this. So they again put me on like medical leave. And this kind of goes back to what Hawley was saying about a therapist. I asked my doctor at the time, and they are out there, to find me an OHIP covered therapist because, while again, I'll say it 8th time, whilst I wasn't traumatized in the traditional sense, I was having a hard time. I remember getting on the subway, which I since I was like 8, like since I was 2, like I'd been riding, right? And I got on the subway, walked down, got on the like platform, looked around, and just was like, "Oh man, I can't do." And I like turned around and like essentially like crawled my way out. I just like, and I was like, "Oh, that's like anxiety," and like and I was like, "Okay, cool." So this is now affecting me in real, like tough guy persona aside, whatever. I made a reference to myself. I'm not tough. So in all
You're
that,
tough as hell.
I went and was like, I was
That
looking.
was cute.
Yeah, right. Yeah, teamwork.
He's a Taurus. He's fucking hard
Same,
as a
baby.
hard as a rock.
Stubborn, let's go.
Yeah.
Super
There it is.
fucking stubborn.
Yeah, unstoppable when we put our minds to it. Yeah, so this is all leading to that. So in the process of figuring out what was next, I'd started a podcast because I was like, what do I like to do? Tell stories. Duh. And so
This is like podcasting was fresh.
Yeah.
It wasn't like how it is
I was gonna say
now.
because podcasting didn't really take off till 16ish.
Yeah, thanks, Joe Rogan.
15, 16.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah.
When did you start listening?
I honestly don't remember. I remember listening to a lot in 2018, but I was traveling and I thought it was time. But like I think before that as well, I just don't remember exactly when.
Yeah.
Yeah, so probably 2008, I was listening to
We
others.
bought him a nice mic, and
Hawley
we
and my mom,
geared him
my
up
sister, yeah, got me the Snowball, which was top of the line back
at
then.
the time. Yeah.
You know, and it was like for podcasting and your Mac, and I was like, what, for both? So, and really what it was I was telling stories about like some of the the concerts I had been to. It was about music.
Yeah, at that point we were spending all of our money on like sneakers on eBay for
Yeah.
Tristan that
Yeah.
may or may not have been fake. Who knows?
Yeah.
It was the good old days.
The good old days.
And like concert tickets.
And concert
just
tickets,
like
yeah.
all of our money, just hundreds
So
of dollars.
sneakers and music.
Sneakers and music,
Basically.
And for me, I found it interesting that it was like how much it motivated me. Again, going back to like growing up, my first jobs being in like clubs and so on. My mom had me young, and music was a big part. I think music's a big part for everyone, but music was a big part. Like she was a single mom, so like she was in her 20s when I was 0 to 10, and so she would play like the music that was like the hot stuff, right? So music's important. And I had been to, by all this time, like I'd been to Glastonbury. I saw David Bowie. I remember seeing like Nine Inch Nails. I remember this like band was just coming up. They had this song called Yellow. And I saw them on like the Glastonbury stage, and I was like, "This guy suck."
He's talking about Coldplay.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I clued
I don't
in
know.
this
I
guy.
mean,
sucks.
I
maybe
had
people
no
don't
idea
know
that
that
was on.
song.
Like,
Yellows?
Yeah. So
Oddly enough, I'm big into music too, and I used to produce a little bit, but I had no idea reference there.
well,
I
yeah,
got
yeah,
Completely
yeah.
ignorant of that.
Yeah.
But sorry.
Maybe
No,
if
but-
you were like, it was all yellow.
It was all yellow, yellow.
Chris Martin's.
But that's
love
amazing.
that.
I mean, that's a long time. So anyway, like I'd been to Glastonbury. I worked in nightclubs. Like I was like backstage. I saw Redman and Method Man. Like I saw all these people. So I wanted to tell those stories. So the podcast was basically like me telling a story about this time I was at a show. And then I would play like a song, and then I would come back from the commercial break. That was me playing a song, and I would be like, "Oh man!" And also like Block Party, like he had these sick jeans on, and these jeans are nudie jeans, and like
Oh man,
you got to
remember when nudies were like the
New?
coolest
Yeah.
stuff, and like people were putting them in the freezer and
Yeah.
shit. Oh,
Yeah,
man. I'll
freezer?
never wear
Yeah,
them
it's
again
'cause you don't
Because there
wash
was like a
them.
ritual of like
I
not wearing
had them. I never did that.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're not supposed to wash them. You're supposed to put them in the fridge to like make them stop smelling or
Yeah.
like demicrobial them.
Yeah.
Is that real?
I
Yeah,
never had a
I
pair,
think
but I
so.
remember
I
hearing
had like
Yeah,
two
yeah.
pairs. I used to love nudies.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
right?
all did.
They were, and so in
Not
the-
by like cheap. Yeah, whatever. Anyway,
No,
sorry.
they just hit maximum saturation, which you want every brand to, because you like I was there in the beginning. Now they're sellouts, but like we all want to be sellouts. 2021. Let's
Offer any human being in the world of what your profession is. If you're an artist, a creative, offer them. Say, would you rather be a sellout or would you rather have this money, have freedom?
Yeah.
Get the freedom.
Oh man, and if you're not, then you're probably lying to yourself. And if you are being honest, then you're a saint. And I do believe those people
There
exist.
is, for sure,
and shout
for
out
sure.
to them. I appreciate Salvador Dali, who like basically understood where he was in the world and like would wake up every day and be like, today I'm going to make $1 million, right? Like I'm going to make art. And I'm going to like, there wasn't no like, oh, I need to struggle to get there. Like, and this is 100 years ago, give or take. But like having that forethought and understanding, like, why do you want to be a struggling? Why do you want to die of syphilis in the cold in the Vienna streets?
Yeah.
No one does. Well, no one does.
No, for sure.
So
And not everyone, just on that point, not everyone wants the material success. I think everyone wants the freedom to do what they want. So
Sure.
I think that's what comes down to. Some people want the material success. Some people want
Yeah.
Ferraris and all
Yep.
these things. But I think it boils down to, doesn't matter what you believe, having the luxury, having freedom to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And monetary gains help you achieve that in some sense. So,
Yep.
would you rather starve on the street and be an artist or have money that affords you time that you don't have to paint all the time or whatever.
Yep.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry.
No,
Continue.
you're absolutely right. I think the system that we live in, and most of the world adheres to it in some sense or another, capitalism or consumerism or whatever it is that we're doing here. It has now become a situation where if you want to have what you would consider like freedom, you need to have money, because you can't just go off the grid. And you can go off the grid, but you also need to be in a situation where you can like survive when you go off the grid. Right? So, yeah.
So podcast.
Yes. So it started as a podcast.
It was kind of like me and like our friends and his mom that would like.
What was it called?
I don't know. I don't know that it had a name at that point. So that's a really interesting story of like how we actually named Sidewalk Hustle our network. And so like at the time I was like, oh, okay, like maybe I want to be a writer. And like I was really into like ID magazine and like cool, you know, art things. And I was always like, oh man, like we should talk about this stuff. And like, I guess I'm kind of skipping ahead actually. And like, if we're going chronologically, okay, never mind.
You guys just grab the mic and make sure it's like dead center to where you talk. So wherever you're going to be looking, make sure it's always centered.
Okay, we're good.
You can move it as you talk too. If you're gonna turn your head,
this actually can turn. Oh,
you can do
it. Oh, there we go. Now,
so yeah, it was
I'm
like
good.
Tristan doing his thing, his podcast. Like I think you had a few friends on there, and then I mean that was back before like there was any software or like anyone to like edit and like timestamp and all the things that you do.
So who did it?
So it was
I
like
did it.
hours and hours and hours of editing out like ums and ahs and all that stuff, and then after a certain point, you know, he was like maybe about like I don't know, half a year or whatever, handful of episodes, whatever he could get done in his spare time. We were like, he was like, I'm just gonna like start writing every day and use that as an outlet.
Wait, time out for a second.
We weren't recording.
Also, this no, we are. This is actually what we've ever heard on this podcast.
Wait till we actually get to the part where we answer your question.
Hey!
George, are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're at the part where the podcast is starting.
Okay.
This is giving me shit today.
We're starting the podcast.
Right. So
it's mostly just about fashion and music and based off your experiences at the Gov.
Yeah, and life in general. So it was like the intersectionality of like fashion meets music, which I guess up until that point, you know, there was no like social media in your hand. You would either go to like a music website to read about music, or you would go to a fashion website. And so I was just like, I'm curious about the in between.
Sorry, were you popular growing up?
It's an arbitrary. It's a subjective question, I think.
Yeah.
Answered subjectively.
So
True.
That's true. I had friends, and I also was in a bunch of different like groups. So
He also played Magic the Gathering all the time. So.
yeah, but you had
don't
some
know.
connections.
Oh yeah, so like I had like friends that like the friends that were like that read books. I had friends that were skaters. I had friends on the football team. I would hang out with like the skaters at the front of the school and they'd be like, oh hey, I gotta go look after my sister, because I have a younger sister, and I'd like duck out to Yonge Street and play Magic the Gathering with like my Magic the Gathering friends. And so I definitely had like groups of friends, and I rarely brought them together, mainly because like just the interest. It's high school, right? You were defined by like what you liked. So I always describe myself as a reluctant leader, because I would find myself in a situation in which point I would be making the decisions, and I'd always be like, oh come on, why am I doing this? Because I'm lazy as fuck. So
Sorry, Hawley, what about you?
Was I popular?
Do you think you were popular? When growing
Not
up?
really, no. I went to an arts high school. So
Which one?
Cawthra Park.
My sister went to Cawthra.
nice.
Yeah, so I was a vocal major, so it was like me and like the basically people who majored in like piano, and they would like accompany us, and we would like hang out in like the practice rooms and shit. So it was a lot of like theater kids and like, you know, choir practice and that kind of shit. But like, I don't know. No, I wasn't. I'm just like responsible, I think, for introducing all of my friends to Sex and the City. They've literally all just been texting me being like, I can't not think about Sex and the City when I look at you. Like whenever I see somebody Sex and the City, I think about you. And I'm just like, that's fucking weird, man. Like, okay.
There is
No, we like
context to that,
I lived
though.
in Mississauga. Like I would get together like in my basement, and like we would like drink and like watch Sex and the City. Like that was my childhood. Like it was nothing exciting.
I just to add some context that I after 15 years that I've know and observed, Hawley went to an arts high school, Cawthra, and her friends, etc. But her aunt and uncle were living in New York and Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And
I had the opportunity to go there a lot when I was growing up, like when I was a young teenager, like, you know, 13, 14, 15, that I can actually like remember going. at the time it was like just going with my parents for Christmas and whatever. And then I got to go like a couple times. My aunt, like, so for my prom, my aunt was like, oh, I want to take you to this like vintage show, because I was really into vintage clothing, and there was like an amazing one in Manhattan, the Manhattan Vintage Show. I think it's still a thing. And at that point, my mom had already bought me a dress, and like it was a kind of weird vibe, because I was like, oh, I really want to go, because like obviously that's going to be better than what I found at the fucking mall, you know? So yeah, I got the opportunity to go there a handful of times, like with friends, and like we'd go into the city. Like they lived in Connecticut, so we would like go in, like they'd drop us off at the train station, and we just like go in all day and like fucking probably had like $50 and like, you know, just tried to like spend that however we could, like go to Century 21 and just, you know, really broaden my horizons being able to do that. And like my friends kind of like saw me as like the into that world too, in a way. And like I had a lot of friends who were like on the art side of things at Kothra, and they were kind of like cool weirdos. So yeah, I got to do that, and it totally changed my perspective of like how I was before, like, you know, just in my parents' basement watching Sex in the City. Like I even went, like one time we even went to Carrie's house and like did a photo shoot. Like they drove in and they were like, okay, cool, this is her house. And we're like, oh sweet. It was like 11 Perry Street, and it's a house that exists. And like there's photos of me wearing like this cute dress like on the top of the stairs. It sounds really fucking lame, but like it was cool. I was like, oh, this is like legit cool. And I remember going into this like vintage store at the end of the street called Gemma, and it was like the most fucking magical dresses ever, but they were like so expensive, like obviously because New York and the neighborhood, Greenwich Village, right? So yeah. What was your point though?
No, that I want to just like take a note. Like she was running.
So we're just like talking down tangents
but
now.
This is what this is.
Yeah.
This is a conversation,
Okay,
right?
cool.
Yeah, there's no script here.
What she described as I'm listening to it now is Instagram, right? Like we drove there,
Yeah.
we did the photo shoot.
We
and this was
printed
probably
those photos off.
Yeah.
Like they're somewhere in a box in my parents' house. Like,
right, and nowhere to post them. But like I guess one that would explain like us still doing this like as a career, and also like to the insatiable human desire to do that, because we've traveled a lot around the world, and you guys probably have been, and like even if you're not traveling, you've been on Instagram, you can see people will go to the places. Oh, Joe went to that place in that place, you know, the waterfall in Iceland, you know,
The swing in Bali,
right? Like
Sunflower fields.
right, things like, so you'll go do that. So I find that interesting that you know, one, the human desire is always there for that, and two, that like, you know, now we still do this. So what was my point? He asked if you were like popular, and I was just saying there's, you know, as always, there's more context to it, because
it was like there wasn't really like popular kids in high school though, because like it was
an arts high school.
yeah, in this
I actually
scenario
saw-
there was like the drama majors were one group, and so the drama majors and the music majors kind of had to overlap, because like if we're putting on a production, then there's obviously like some music elements, so then we're all gonna hang in that respect. And then like it was really like the dancers that I never saw, because they were like just fucking trying to get with the jocks, I guess, like actually a cliche, but they were, and like never really connected with any of them. And then like the visual art majors, like I was interested in that, and my school made a point of like putting up people's art in school. Like they did like a biennial, and they would like put the best ones up, and I'd be like, oh shit, that's fucking cool. And like to this day I'm obsessed with art and love going to galleries. So
What year did you graduate from Kothra?
I don't know, I'm not really like a year's time person. Like I'm just kind of like that was that time, and this was that.
I'm
Yeah.
just curious because I grew up in Mississauga as well. That's why I'm curious.
Okay.
I went to Loyola in Mississauga.
Oh, okay.
I know
Well,
about
what year were you
Kothra.
born?
All right, 86.
There we go. That's,
Yeah.
yeah. So you're a little older than me. So you would have graduated by the time I started high school.
Okay.
04 probably,
Yeah.
give or take.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not good with dates and times. That's why I'm like, oh, everyone's like, yeah, you started Sidewalk Hustle in 2007, 2008. I'm like, yeah, 2007, 2008. I think, yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we made a Roots jacket, a collab Roots jacket, and we like put the year on it. So like that was the moment where we were like, okay, that's really the year in our minds. And like even when we were first started dating, like we were like, when's our anniversary? Like we were still like kind of just put the date on it, like.
What's the date of the shower head and the duvet?
Ah,
I don't know.
That's the date.
I don't think
that'd be
so.
Jan,
That's
that'd be
the
like
date.
Jan 5th or something. Yeah.
No, I think we settled on like October.
Well, middle of October,
Which-
so like 15th ish.
Yeah, I mean that was like a different thing that happened at that time.
Yeah,
But we're not going to talk about
what
that.
are we? Yeah,
Okay. Let's focus on
Yes.
the
focus
current
on answering
the question, the original, the first. We're what 40 minutes in.
Yeah.
I like this.
Still didn't get to the end of the
This
story.
is not a bad thing. This is a great thing. Me and Ricky, this is the least words we've said in 40 minutes in history, and honestly, it's the best.
love it.
This is the point. Like we do this, we want to hear people's stories, and we've talked about this. I mean, we've had amazing, diverse guests.
Yeah.
The ones that just go are like it's the best
Yeah.
because you hear people's stories, and that's why we started doing this. So. By all
It's a
means,
good
just
fucking
continue.
story, too.
Yeah,
It
It's
is.
a good- it's a good story.
I thought this was gonna be. I've always loved fashion and music, so
Yeah,
I
it's not a
decided to start a
cliche
blog. I was
story.
like, that's kind
This
of.
is like-
I'm not gonna lie. That's what I was expecting. Like I've always been into sneakers. I got my first pair of Levi's jean jacket, or my first pair of Levi's jeans, and I got a matching jacket when I was 12, and that's what started everything. That's what I was kind of expecting, like a souped.
That's
up
what you
version.
literally imagined.
I was like
Yeah.
a souped up version.
It's
of
actually
that.
not that far off on like certain aspects.
You know what I mean?
to
Like
be honest.
I was expecting it to be a little bit better than that,
yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
But I was not expecting the whole gun situation. That was
yeah.
like, whoa, okay, where'd that
Yeah.
come from? But
Yeah, sometimes we don't tell that story. It depends on what crowd
how much
we're
time
around.
we have.
Yeah.
Because it takes 45 minutes.
Yeah.
this is the
time.
one you
We
don't
got
tell
time.
it at a dinner table.
No,
you
no.
guys have like the cold.
Yeah,
We
we
have
have
the Coles
the
notes,
snippet
yeah.
version.
Okay.
So yes, I would say that Hawley was popular in as much there she wasn't unpopular.
Okay.
And then amongst her friends,
It just wasn't like that. Like I think by the end when we were all graduating, everyone just hung out.
Yeah.
So I like definitely knew, like a bunch of people went on to do really cool shit. Like my friend Heather, who's an amazing guitarist. She plays in Jesse Reyes's band.
Oh, sick.
And my friend Adamo was on Degrassi with Drake. So, they all like people went on to do some really cool shit. I'm always really like inspired to see that and like discover that. Like I didn't know Heather was in the band until I was like literally at a Jameson event and she was there and I was like, oh fuck, that's Heather. Yes. Like she just like is the most beautiful guitar player ever. Like my friend Robin, like she's also an amazing musician. Like my friend Jean went on to start a pastry company in Paris. Like
That's sick.
before he was a producer in LA. Like everybody did like cool stuff. So yeah, I mean,
Well, I guess
It
it's a good
was a
segue
time.
to what you guys are doing and the cool stuff you're doing.
yeah.
yes. So
I thought there's more backstory before we get this.
oh yeah, we can't. Even,
can't jump in.
that'll be episode 2. Hey, subscribe for episode 2.
Yeah. Comment and like for part
Comment
2.
and like for part 2. Be sure to follow. Yeah. So the podcast. Oh geez. Basically, so I was doing the podcast during the robbery, during the school. I actually took like a couple months off. I woke up after that fever dream. Is this what I'm going to do? And I realized I was like, what did I always want to do? Well, I wanted to be a writer, like as a teenager, and like I also wanted to be a rapper, but I can't rap and I can't write rhymes. I just assumed it would happen, right? Like,
But your friends rapped and wrote rhymes
Right.
and like made beats
Yeah.
around you, so that makes sense.
yeah, I was just there doing the other things that happen in those circles, and hanging out. So I realized I wanted to be a writer, and I was like, okay, I have to write. I'm not going to do this podcast, but I'm actually finding I'm not that happy that I wasn't doing work. Like,
And it was a lot of time. Like I
Yeah.
was watching you spend so many hours on
Yeah.
it, and I'm like, ugh.
I learned to read audio. I could see that, like where my like I could see the waveform of it, and I learned to clip it. So I actually got good at it. But I was like, I can't do this. And we had gone to school for writing, and like I could write faster than I could edit my own self. So I was like, okay. So we started a blog, and it was just a blog. And the podcast name originally was I can't remember exactly, but it was like The Twisted Mind of a Music Parasite. And then I was like, that won't be a good blog. So I was with some friends and we were
At this point, it was literally just Tristan. Like
Yeah.
I was not. We were together, but I was like, "What is this thing you're doing?"
she was still
Like I remember when he made like the music parasite something like on like a Vistaprint
Blogspot
card.
or so-
And I was
I had a
like,
little
okay.
business card and leaved at places. But in all that time, I had moved back from Vancouver. I had kind of lost track with my friends because I had moved away. I had been robbed at gunpoint. I was feeling a bit traumatized. I had a lot of time off because the bank was worried I was going to do something. So I went and made a point of reconnecting with my friends and like establishing those connections that had been sort of severed when I had left. And I was with some friends again, and we were kind of like freestyling on a street corner, like, whatever, like blah, 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 blah. And I'd been telling him like, oh, I I'm not happy. I want to write again. I needed like a blog. I want to do this, but like I need a better name. And he was like, standing on the streets and I'm hustling and this is how we do it. And I was like, yo, street hustle, that's dope. So I went to see if that existed. Street hustle didn't. And I was like, well, I'm not going to stand in the street anyway.
I thought it was written down.
I'm more of a sidewalk hustle kind of guy. So like it came out that way. And then I was like, sidewalk hustle, I'm into that. And because it was a blog, like today I wore, but it was again the music thing. Like I saw Method Man, I met Redman, and also
it was like some really low budge photos that we had taken
from
on
our
like
phones,
probably
right?
a flip phone at that point, like
14
Motorola
years
Razor.
ago. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Bam. And it kind of like I wrote, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, and it was like fun. And Hawley's like, you should write more women's stuff, and I was like, no.
I was like, you should write about this cool art thing,
Yeah.
or like, oh, this is like a weird thing. Look, Tilda Swinton's in a box somewhere, like.
And I was like, no, but you can do it because you have a writing degree, and Hawley wasn't. And this is all now, like this is 2007 into 2008. And again, like when we met, like university, like we were poor. Like we had like no TV, we had like our laptop, we had like no furniture, we had like a chair, we'd sit in like the one chair.
Yeah, we used to sit in one chair together.
Yeah.
At this point,
And like we would
I think we got a sofa
eventually. But we would read like art books and like, not talking about the other thing, but we'd alter our mind
imbibe
state. And then we'd like read like, like a picture book of like Warhol or whatever. And this is sort of what we did. So, for fun. So when we were moving up in life and whatever. And so Hawley said, you should do that. And I was like, well, why don't you do it? And she joined and, she was writing about these things. And, suddenly people kind of cared or like people noticed.
We were on Twitter at that point too, and like trying to promote it however we could, but just more like getting our voices out there at that point. Like personally, like Tristan's handle was always like, he was just Sidewalk Hustle.
Yeah.
And then there became a point at some point where I was like, maybe we should make that like our business handle. And then you can just, talk about video games and Magic the Gathering on your other handle. Like if we want to like really niche into what we're doing here, like this was all like kind of a collaboration. And, we kind of did that as like our, we got a bit more like passionate about it after we got home from work. We would just like spend hours and hours doing it and like trying to pour ourselves into it. And then eventually his friend who lives out west, who does like skateboarding, snowboarding videos and like designs websites, was like, oh, you guys kind of like have something here. You should really maybe think about like cleaning it up and like making it, like let me help you to do that and like make it more legitimate. And we did that, and yeah, we've gone through like, I don't know, like 10 different logos since then. And
Yeah.
When what year was this when you guys kind of decided to like take it a little more seriously and it became more than a blog?
So I guess the name would have changed. Podcast to Site 2008, maybe by 2009. All this has happened. 2009, maybe Hawley jumps on board and starts writing. It's now Sidewalk Hustle. I am now during that time when I was figuring it out, I was again not working. The bank wouldn't let me, generously kept me around until I found a new job, and my therapist had to sign off on it, basically being like, yep, he won't kill himself and blame you in the letter, right? So I know, sorry.
No, that's fair.
Right. So
gotta love him.
yeah. So I during that time I had moved the internet. Social media was popping off, and I moved into affiliate marketing. And I joined affiliate marketing because I had worked in the bank. They wanted me to screen people for like fraud because it's really easy to like fraud on the internet. And so I had to like call people and kind of be like, hey, you're a human. You're selling, 15,000 penis pills or weight loss pills. Okay, cool. Like I had to do that. And then I was also like, hey, why don't I do like the Twitter and Facebook? Because that's all that existed at that point. And I'll just sort of like put up the things and put up some codes, and that kind of took off. And then eventually affiliate marketing, I joined, and this is probably now 2009 into 2010. And when I joined, everyone who worked there was like, last year was the golden age. And I was like, oh, I missed it. And like people like, we
Of
flew
podcasting?
No, of affiliate marketing,
Oh, okay.
banner ads on your website, essentially. We
I
were
haven't
just
heard this
we were
story
in
in a long time.
Yeah, we were just in Dubai riding on like helicopter jet skis because affiliate marketing, and I was like, oh, I'm tweeting, but I was like, the internet is where it's at, right? Because clearly there's money here, and in doing that, I kind of honed in my skills, And I was always looking for a job because obviously I wasn't like, I'm cool with this. Like I essentially changed careers or finally decided on something. So now we're in like 2010. And I see, the site's coming along. Hawley's writing. We've kind of cleaned it up. We're taking it a bit more seriously. Brands. And this is where we
both still have day jobs.
We still both have like day jobs.
I was a florist.
At that point, Hawley was a florist. Then she became a project manager. Like we were moving up in the world of whatever that world was that we were moving up in. And I saw an ad for... it wasn't social media, but it was like the government nightclub, Inc. Entertainment, is looking for someone to do Facebook and Twitter. And so I went to the interview and I had like my sneakers on and like a bow tie and like my hat to the side because I just come from the bank world. So I still like classed it up, but I was like still me. And I was talking to like the main guy and he's like, social media, what we need is, and I was like, these are the things I've learned about social. This is, and he was like, oh, and I was like, and I used to work here. Like now I'm like, so this would be 10 years ago. Yeah. So literally 10 years ago. So I'm like 28. Now you know my age. I'm old as dirt. Like I was like 28, 29 when I was interviewing for this. And I was like, I get this. Like, let's do it. So they eventually hired me. But the reason they did, ironically, is your second interview when the guy who brought me in bumped me up to the next two people. He was like, yo, I like your sneakers. And I was like, I like yours. Are those the like Atmos elephants? And he's like, they are. So like that was enough. Huh.
Jose.
Yeah, Jose. And then his boss, who eventually like still is part of the Inc. empire, he was like, you do Sidewalk Hustle. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, that's your website? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, will you stop doing it when you come to work here? And I was like, no. And he was like, okay. And that was that. Like, that's not a big, but I remember that so distinctly. And that is now like, now we're into 2011. And so between that time, Hawley and I were taking it seriously. And we ended up
as seriously as we could. I don't think Instagram was like a thing.
There was no Instagram.
So we were like, we go to like events. We'd go to like tweet ups with people that we would like talk to online, and then we would like end up at the Drake and like be having a drink and whatever. Like we're really just like, oh sweet, cool, free drinks. Yeah, let's go. Like not to be gauche about it,
but there was
at
no
that
benefits.
Point we were like, there wasn't really anything to gain. Like now I feel like everything is so like calculated and like curated, and this was
then it was
not
around common interest. Like, hey, let's get together.
Yeah,
it wasn't like
hey, you're on Twitter, I'm on Twitter, we both like sneakers, let's meet up at X
we're in
to
Toronto.
Chat sneakers.
Yeah, exactly. Or
now
like,
it feels more like, how many followers you have. Too few, can't hang out with you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's you nailed it.
Yeah.
So many people are like that now,
and everybody has like a social media presence in some way or another, which just makes sense. Like my mom is on, so like she has a TikTok, she has a this, she has that. Everyone has a something, but back then not everyone had a something. Like Hawley didn't even have a personal Facebook because she's like, no,
I didn't want to be on it. I wanted to become like a serious magazine writer, art director or something like that. That like I could create art, but I would be behind the scenes. Like I didn't want to have it be about me.
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's interesting.
And so just knowing people in the city, common interests on Twitter, which again was a common interest. We'd meet those people and we use Twitter to, promote stuff like our posts on the site, rather like, hey, we wrote about that. And it was still from a storytelling perspective. Hawley mentioned that my buddy, his name was Dave, he was like, clean it up, take out the I, make it like more like universal, the we, or don't, and then like you can have something with this. And we did. And brands would like, all of a sudden we were added to like mailing lists, but then also Hawley would like reach out on Twitter.
I decided that we had been spending way too much money on concert tickets, and I would see like people's super amateur photos of concerts, and I was like, I have a camera, why don't I just ask them if I can cover it? Like I also have this outlet that I created. Yes, it's not like the Toronto Star or whatever the like legit ones were back then, but I was like, it's worth asking. And like some people said no, at first, and that was fine. That hurt. And then, eventually some of those promoters started to come around, and like, one time we got, I will never forget, we got approved to cover CMJ in New York. And that was like, at the time, I mean, we had CMW here, which was
so people know
Canadian Music Week, which is not really a thing anymore. Sadly, it's kind of like dead here. But it used to be a really cool like I saw Grimes play at Horseshoe Tavern. Like,
Grimes, by
when
the
she
way,
had-
is Elon Musk's wife. not
she
Gene
literally
Racer. She's
played on
really
a
good
folding
artist.
table. Like, it was not high production. She was nobody, but that was the hottest ticket to have. And
Yeah.
I think I probably still physically have it.
Probably should keep it because you just sold a bunch of art,
Yep.
NFT art for like
NFT
$6 million
art.
something the other day.
Smart
Maybe.
as F.
Yeah.
But I
NFTs
remember
crazy.
like getting approved to go to that festival in New York and thinking like it was easier for us to get approved to cover stuff in a place like New York than it was in Toronto, because that shit was so cliquey here that like people just didn't want to let us in unless they knew us through someone or had like a legit connection. So I remember when we got approved for CMJ, I was like, this is it. Fuck yeah. Like we're going to go to like as many shows as we can. And we did. And it was awesome. And that was like, to me, I was like, okay, sweet. Like I'm going to just start playing, like pushing our numbers at people and like, you know, just talking with a bit more like persuasion and like being more confident in what we had built. Because at that point it was like starting to get cleaned up. And like, again, this was always like a side project. So we put as much time as we could into it in our spare time. And like, we were really fucking tired. And like, we'd go to shows and come home and like write about them until like fucking 2 a.m. and then wake up and go to work the next day. Like it was a slog for sure.
So, as we were talking about music, we were also talking about fashion and art, which again goes back to the podcast, that like intersectionality that wasn't being like on Pitchfork Music. It's music, you know, it's like a music website. It was a fashion website,
But there was always some crossover too, right? Like music and fashion, like where they intersected. Like I remember watching Fashion Rocks. Is that what it was called? It's like a variety show kind of vibe where it was like there were models walking at the same time as an artist was playing in the middle. I think it was called Fashion Rocks. I like wrote a paper about it in school, and it was like David Bowie and like Iman, obviously, and the like I just thought that was really cool.
an Arcade
intersection.
Fire.
Oh yeah, an Arcade Fire.
But like, so we would write a piece about music, and then we'd write a piece about fashion. And so at the same time as this music thing, the like asking, can we come cover your show? Fashion brands, we'd reach out to them, or they would reach out to us. So Palladium boots. I don't know if you guys heard of Palladium boots.
Are they
You probably have, and you probably will have seen them.
a
Like
store on Queen
They're
Street?
like military
No,
style
but
boots.
They're in stores on Queen Street.
Yeah.
So they look like
Almost like Dr. Martens type boots, or no?
sort
More-
of. They look like Converse almost, but boots.
Okay.
Essentially, you.
They're
will
not
now-
super premium. They're
No.
like kick around boots.
Yeah.
We basically got connected to them and I knew the person, I guess, through like meeting them at a fashion show, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to like?" I guess we'd been writing about them for such a long time. We would always write about whatever their drops were, and then eventually we were like, "You should like maybe like, do you guys have some budget? We can like play around
No.
with that and like."
No. So what
No.
happened was Hawley did know the guy at Palladium, and he said, "I have a bunch of boots coming for the next season. Or can I
He's
send
better
you,
about the details. Like I said, I'm like,
can I
don't
send
know.
you some boots, or will you write about this?" And we wrote back and said, "No. Why don't you send us the boots and we will shoot it and make like an original piece of editorial for you?" And for them, again, this is before
Not
money's.
for them, for us. Like we were like,
For
this
us
is an
about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, this is a good opportunity for us to like create a unique piece of content that, like, again, I think this predates Instagram. Maybe Instagram was just starting around this time. So yeah, they sent us the whole collection, and we rounded up like a handful of our friends, some of our writers. Fortunately, my cousin is a brilliant cinematographer, and he was, I mean, maybe not brilliant at that point, but he was like wanting to get into that and like make that his full-time gig at the time. And yeah, we shot it like up on the train tracks at like DuPont, like near where we lived at the time. And like, yeah, it was a cool vibe. I still really like that video. It's on our YouTube.
And so the video Hawley really likes. That's not even. So they sent us the boots.
Oh yeah, I'm glazing that over.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There
This
was
is actually an important story on like when things like changed. So the boots came, we took pictures, we wrote the editorial, and we had produced something. And it was at that moment we were like, we're not just going to like, we did, but we aren't going to like repurpose the same thing over and over again. There's more to us than that. Let us show you. So they did.
Yeah, we always wanted to kind of end up being like a magazine. But obviously when you don't have a lot of money or backers at all, it's tough to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to like put together a photo shoot or like a full video production. Like that was just not something we even thought was possible.
And so I remember they gave us the money because we were like, you got to reimburse our photographer. So it was like the first time money had been given to us, and it wasn't anything. It was for, again, Hawley's like cousin, who's a friend. We worked with him. You know, we work with him still. He is a really good cinematographer. And then
He doesn't like being called a videographer.
Yeah,
So
I call him a cinematographer.
Cinematographer.
Because he's spicy. So that was the first time. And then like a couple months later, because, you know, they're like,
I think
hey,
we had a couple sponsored post ops before that, just to be like totally transparent about that. Like that was like people like, oh, you know, we have this campaign and will you write about it and like
I don't
tweet
even
about
know.
it? I think so.
maybe for
Because I don't think
events,
that was our first gig.
maybe events in the city. Again, like, you know, can you promote it? Because it was very localized.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, the next time they came back and they were like, hey, do you want to do it again? And we were like, yes, but differently. We want to do a video this time and pictures. Will you pay for that? And they were like, yes. And so then we made this video and we did these pictures. Then they came back another time. They're like, we have this crazy new thing you've never heard of. It's a global campaign. And it's where people show
It's
us.
called Explore Your City.
Explore Your City. And people
which was
show us
essentially
locations.
the video that we
of
had
their
created.
city. Yeah, so they
for
took
them.
what we did for them and had a global campaign. And so we were tapped for Toronto, and it was like Hype Beast in Hong Kong, and it was people in Amsterdam. And so it was the first time we were now part of this like bigger conversation. We were included with the like people that we looked up to. And so we did that. And again, like each time we're doing this, they're covering more and more of our costs, and our costs are inflating because we want to actually like have more than just our costs covered. Mm-hmm. And by the fourth or fifth time, they were like, hey, do you want to do it again? We did it maybe 4 times. By the fifth time, like, you want to do it again? We were actually like, no, because this is actually becoming like, we don't want to be one trick pony. And at the same time, other brands now were coming up being like, hey, we see what you're doing. Do you want to like work with us? And some brands, then we learned like the hard lesson that if you work with this brand, then this brand doesn't like you.
Yeah.
And that became an interesting road to navigate at the same time, because there wasn't even really money being exchanged. You know, like nowadays, like TikTok, Johnny Orlando, like TikTok stars who like move to LA and then are like, you know, all like, we're in the like union, we're ACTRA. Oh, I have this for, I made 10 million. You know, it's like none of that was happening. Like we were trying to cover costs.
Yeah.
Right. And so now people are like, do you want to do this work? And all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute. Like there is money to be made here.
Yeah. We didn't know. We were actually kind of like, I remember the moment where I was like, huh. And I looked at like the ops that I was getting, and I kept having to like ask for time off from work. This is like maybe a couple years later after that.
Maybe like 20. So I went back to work at Inc. at 2011, and the boss was like, are you still going to do Sidewalk Hustle? And I was like, yeah. So it was still popping off. Mm-hmm. So it's like maybe 2012, 2013. Like
I worked at Inc. for I did promo. So I worked at Skybar every summer from 2012 to 2014.
Yep.
I want to say.
Sure.
And then I would sell tickets for like the big events.
Yeah, we even like filmed interviews there with
One of
like
our
really
Palladium
great
videos,
yeah, we filmed one of our Palladium videos there. We also interviewed the Foals there. Like we did a lot of like stuff there. So yeah, I remember like we had like we co-presented the Black Star show.
Oh yeah, the Black Star
like,
show
that
in
was
Toronto.
like a big moment back then. Like we've had a lot of really amazing moments. But yeah, I remember like, I guess you were still working there at the time.
I was still working there.
I was a florist. I went back from like project management, and then I went back to being a florist, and then back to project management. And then I remember when it was like I got invited to go to Coachella, and I like felt really bad asking for all this time off from work, because at the time, obviously, you know, it's like how it is now. Obviously, people are going to work and giving everyone COVID even when they're sick. It was like not cool to be like, can I get days off? Like I didn't have one of those types of jobs. They were like, yeah, you can, you just don't get paid. So I'll be like, okay, cool, sweet. How am I gonna, you know, it's tricky. But then I was like looking at like the opportunities we were getting, and like I remember like sitting on the streetcar and like hoping that my boss would say yes and that I could go. And then I was just like, wait a second. I actually like did the numbers, and I was like, maybe it would be okay if like I didn't work for him anymore, and I just like gave myself into this because of like all these amazing opportunities that were getting thrown our way. And like I was like fucking scared. Like I was like, I don't want to quit. I'm like, I like, you know, I was raised by parents who were like super about their shit, and like they wanted me to have a corporate job with like insurance and like medical and all that stuff that like, you know, people in the suburbs dream about. But like this was not like they still to this day do not understand what I do and how I make money. So there is that. But I remember being like, I'm so scared. Like I was like, Tristan, you definitely have to keep your job. If I quit, like I'll take the trips. I'll go and like do these things. And like, maybe if you can come, then great. And like, he fortunately was able to come on a lot of them. And then like, I remember like 2 years after that, people were like, oh shit, I'm going to quit like some of the people that we had like come with were also doing it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, and now it's like such a, you know,
don't even
a
need to
thing
have a
to
job
do.
First. You just social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we didn't know that we could make money. Like I looked at how much we were making and I looked at how much I was making at work and I was like, okay, it's not that far off. Like if I actually gave myself, I always said to Tristan, like it's the good hours of your day, right? Like you're giving your job all the good hours in your day, and then your like side hustles just getting like your shit nighttime hours where you're not like fully focused, but you're super passionate about it and you want to be able to give those daytime hours, but like how do you get there, right? And so I quit in
2014, September 2014.
He's the time guy. And I remember like 3 months in being like, I'm fucking drowning. Like there is so much to do now that like I'm doing this. Like Tristan, you need to quit, because if you don't, like we're not going to hit it. If you don't do it now, it's not going to happen. So like, I think you quit like 2 months after that.
I gave my resignation on February 1st, 2015, and I was done on the 14th, 2015, and that actually coincided with the closing of Government nightclub. But context. So Hawley left during that time, and while I'm at Inc. from 2011, working in social media, Instagram doesn't really exist. I spent 4.5 years working with the guys at Inc. Again, you know, now in my lifetime, I've worked for Charles Caboth, who owns Inc. and whatever, like the equivalent of like 8 years of my life. So I was there. I really wanted to do a good job. They hired me at like such a discount, like, and I wasn't making a lot of money at the bank, but to get to at Inc., I was like, I will take this job for nothing, but you're going to give me more money next year when I show you like what social media can do. And they were like, okay, bud. But they let me do it.
At that point, they were still like postering.
So I remember like I worked above the nightclub, the Government nightclub. The office had no windows except the owner. He had windows. And there was 8 of us in this building. And we were just doing everything. We launched Music Festival Veld.
Did you work with Massimo?
Of course. Of course. What up, Mass? So we launched Veld, which was EDM Music Festival. And again, this is the birth of the internet. We were like, let's do it all on online. And the website crashed because people wanted these tickets. Deadmau5 was headlining it, I think, whatever. That in our panic, the boss was like, we need to make the money, so have them fax in their ticket order. And I remember just looking at them being like, are you
Did you just say
me?
fax?
Right? But this is all the birth of like social media as a viable business, especially in Toronto. And this is a music
Also, I feel like an older demo finally like respecting it. It was like there before, but like the older demo definitely didn't like give it the time because they just didn't see the power of it. And now look at us, right?
So I talked to Charles, the owner of Inc., and I was the only social media guy. I'd hired a few people to go live tweet like Avicii at whatever or Tiesto at wherever. And I paid, because I didn't want to go. I paid them, you go and you tweet. And I remember explaining to my boss, I'm like, what we're doing is people who were there or were there the next day are going to look back at the pictures and the tweets and be like, oh man,
I wish I was there.
I was there.
Or you were there, yeah.
And everybody who wasn't there, who's looking at it, is going, I can't believe I missed out on this. Years later, I had an intern, and I was explaining this concept to him, and he's like, yeah, I learned about this in college. It's called FOMO. And I was like, what? You're teaching this in college? FOMO? Oh, man, that makes sense. That's a good one. So, but that was the goal, and I explained it to him, and I was like, I guarantee by doing this, and I'm part of the problem, we're creating this, like, you know, instant, like, reward where I was there, or I wasn't there, and I want it. I was talking
Positive and negative feedback loop simultaneously.
Exactly. And all in the end will go to sales. So I went and talked to the owner. Again, this is all social media. This is context. This is like, what is the power of it? They were postering. So he owned like 8 clubs and a couple restaurants. And I asked him straight up, how much do you pay in postering? And he said between the 8 clubs and the like graphic design, getting the thing printed, then paying the team to paste it, then paying the team to take it down, then paying the fines from putting it up, I probably pay about $500,000 a year for postering. And I said, if you give me half of that, I'll show you what I can do with social media. And he said no. And he gave me probably $500,000. He probably gave me a 20th of that to work with, right? And we still managed to like make it rain in the desert, like because social media was so powerful, and nobody knew because it wasn't oversaturated, and everybody, and again, the people that were following the government or the people that were following like these nightclubs and restaurants wanted to know.
Yeah.
So we were
This
just
is London.
Yeah,
and all
exactly.
those places.
Union, Cube. It's just like feeding it directly to them. Those people will know more about what's going on before the poster comes down. And then we started doing digital sales. And so all these things are happening in like Instagram, like social media, man, social media. And I was just like happy to be part of this team where they essentially thought I was like a wizard. They'd be like, we need to sell tickets. Can you literally, like, as Instagram now exists, they'd be like, can you tweet about, Tiesto? We need to sell tickets. And I was like,
yeah, here's the graphic.
yeah,
Post this.
sure, I'll tweet about Tiesto. But like that tweet with Tiesto and a ticket link would actually generate a sale, right? If and then they'd be like, whoa, because it was real, it was tangible. And so eventually everything moved on. I still never got the budget for the postering, but postering went away. And for me, to go back to where Hawley was saying, she quit in September 2014, and she was working for a couple months doing Sidewalk Hustle stuff on her own. And then I went to the government was closing the legendary nightclub in Toronto. The landlord was pulling the land 2 years early. I'm going to build condos. It's done. And so I saw the writing on the wall because I knew that the government was a money printing machine. Like literally they did a Coldplay event once with Molson Canadian where there was only like 1,000 people in a small room. These guys were headlining stadiums, and those tickets you could only win, but they were being resold before there was any resale market of substance for like $3,000 a ticket because it was so intimate.
Yeah.
It's a legend. Rolling Stones, like it's a legendary venue.
We did one with Kygo at at Union.
Yep.
Remember Samsung Galaxy Party?
Oh,
Toy Box
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah, it's Toy Box now. I think it's Toy Box.
Yeah,
now.
it's, unless they changed it again. But I knew the government was closing. I had the first time I had ever done illegal drugs as a teenager, had an epiphany moment, was at the government when I was 15. One of my first jobs was working at the government. I saw I saw amazing things like music. When they said the government was closing, 2015, I saw that as like the perfect bookmark to end this. And because I didn't want to like then be broke, because as I said, I was hired for less, but each year I asked for more money, and each year they gave me what I asked for because I was showing improving. In the last year, I was like, I need more money. And they were like, the government's closing. You're not going to get that. And I was like, I know. I'm just saying this so that we know what's about to happen. And I said, I'm leaving. And the first thing everyone said, well, Charles, who owns the company, said, who are you going to work for? And I was like, no one, myself. And he's like, oh, okay, good. Good luck. I hope the best for you, right? I'm still friendly with all of them, but I thought that was interesting. Who are you going to work for? Because people would do that. Massimo, for instance. People would leave and go start their own companies, and they'd be competition. And club world is run like the mob. So I ended up giving my 2 weeks. The Sunday night, Deadmau5 played the last show at the government. I sat there. It was like a moment. There's like 8,000 people in the building, but I found my own moment alone, and I kind of just was like, okay, this was like my own introspective, personal, Zen-like goodbye to a place that really like, I guess built me, made me. Also, one of the reasons I ran out west was because working at the government nightclub, I needed to be elsewhere. So like, it was so fundamental in who I was that I decided to give my 2 weeks the next day. And then I left halfway through February. And I took a bunch of freelance jobs, one with Massimo, actually, like just doing, because I was like a social media quote unquote wizard.
I think there's also like some insecurity too as to like whether or not we were going to survive at that point, and like could we make it, and it's a different world now, but
yeah. So I took some jobs and immediately regretted it because we were so busy. Travel opportunities, like make videos, sneaker stuff, sponsored stuff, 2015, that eventually I stopped after I finished whatever it was for the few people I did. I stopped. And
you were
then
like, I'm never doing that again.
I'm never doing that again. Just I didn't have the time, and it went back to the thing, which is you'll end up giving your best hours to someone else. So we started traveling, and we were not home, and we were like, this was such an experience, and we were like elsewhere. For me, one of the most fundamentally changing moments for me, aside from the bank robbery, was when I went to school in downtown Toronto, as this whole 15-hour long story I've told suggests. But because I'm my age, I went on an exchange program twice to the south of France, and I can't speak French, and
Which I'm like gonna say we didn't get that shit in my high school
because
so.
it ended by the time I went to high school. Not to talk politics, but like the system was already being dismantled, et cetera, et cetera. But I had gone to the south of France twice, and first time was in grade 6, and I went first trip without my family, and I went, and I just remember being like, whoa, like understanding that people, like how fundamentally important traveling is to people, at least for me, and what I think is like you all of a sudden understand or have empathy and sympathy for others because you see and understand that there are others. These people, I was in the south of France. They didn't speak English. They spoke, but there was so much similarity. I watched Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Running Man. Great movie if you haven't seen it.
Great
Arnold
movie.
Schwarzenegger is one of my favorite actors growing up.
Yeah.
As a kid, Commando is one of my. Have you seen it?
Yeah,
All-time
of course.
favorite movie.
Of course.
I wanted to be an action star as a kid because of that movie.
And
terrible acting now.
You mentioned that on one of our previous podcasts.
Most recently, because it's on Disney Plus for some reason. Disney Plus has Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
I wonder
That's
why.
so strange.
Yeah,
I mean, that's good for him.
I didn't
Probably
even
just
know this,
bought
but I
it.
went like usually you see all the Disney stuff at Disney Plus. You go for like Marvel or
Yep.
Star Wars, and then my sister told me that like if you go to movies, there's like, the whole bank of like the Stars Network or Sony Pictures or something. So I went on the other day, and it's just like Disney movies, action movies, and it's such a weird mix, but. I love it. Yeah.
Wait, so Commando's
on it, the
Disney
Predator.
Plus?
Oh, man.
All Predators,
This
all
is
aliens.
really good. This is
Nice.
what we've been doing
Yeah.
with our weekends these days. We're like,
Yeah.
all right, Saturday morning breakfast. What are we marathoning today?
We watched
like there's
80s
nothing
stuff.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we only want to watch old movies too.
Yeah.
Some good ones. Anyway, sorry,
No,
Running Man. there.
but this is it, right? It's about common understandings and common links that I didn't understand because I had finally been removed from my bubble. So I'm in the south of France. It's Saturday afternoon, and I was staying with a family, and the boy I was staying with, we went to his friends across the way, and they had like a Sega Dreamcast, and we were just hanging out. And they're speaking French. I can't really understand, but like, I'm not like, I'm so alienated. We're still hanging out, right? We're doing some dirt biking. We're doing stuff. And then we watched Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was all in French. And I wasn't like, I don't understand. I was like, I'd seen it, but I was like, this movie's so good.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. So we all just sat there and watched it. And like again, this is grade 6. Like, I still think about that moment today because that was the moment where I was like, oh yeah, like, like we're all the same, right? So traveling is so important. So in this job, like we are so blessed that we were able to travel.
And we made it a priority too. We're always, I mean, we talked about like me being like really obsessed with New York. I always wanted to move to New York when I was a kid. And then I like grew up and realized, oh fuck, like it's really hard to live there. And it's like, I don't know whether I want to move there and like start over essentially. So we're like, okay, maybe we won't do that. But we were there like all the time. We were there covering like Governor's Ball and like whenever they like Panorama, like whenever
Music
they launched a new
festivals.
festival, we were there, like had to be there. And like we were there pretty regularly because it's not a long flight and it's easy to get there, easily. And yeah, that just kind of like snowballed and we did that. We tried to go to at least one in every place we went. Even when we went to Paris the first time, we like found this
14 years
cute
ago.
little festival and it was like out in this park and the French people had brought their wine. And I remember rolling up and being like, oh crap, we didn't bring any of our own wine. Like what? But it was the Chromatics, which I mean, they're like the heads know about this band. And then they went on to be like really a big deal like years later. And that happened like so many times.
I don't want to take away from the story, but what's the best place or what's your favorite place you've ever traveled because of this?
Oh, because of this, like because of Sidewalk Hustle? Yeah. I'm gonna say Japan for sure.
Yeah,
because
Asia,
it's-
Shanghai.
and this
what were you
wasn't.
covering
We
while you were there?
didn't go for any reason. We just went because we wanted to go there.
And luckily with this, you make work wherever you go. But because of us going to
Yeah, we did
Tokyo-
actually end up going when we were in Tokyo, a friend of mine worked at a PR company, and one of his clients was MasterCard, and he was like, hey, there's this meet and greet with Gwen Stefani, and then she's gonna do a show. Do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, I want to go. Like, definitely first magazine I ever owned had Gwen Stefani, no doubt, like on the cover. So I was like, this is a big deal. Like, so I have a photo of me with Gwen Stefani. It's pretty fucking dope. That was like a really weird experience though, because like, I mean, I love that about travel and about like the music worlds. Is like every audience is different. They're all like, some of them like rave so crazily, and then some of them just are like being cool. And like in Tokyo, everybody had their own personal space. Like they were like, people were having fun, but then there were people like in suits, and I'm like, this is strange. And like I was like, do they even understand like who she is? Like, anyway,
sense of personal space.
Yeah.
But because of that trip to Tokyo, which, you know, and Japan, and we made the most of it because, again, it's like 2015 maybe, social media, Instagram, et cetera, we had a friend contact at Converse, and she said they're sending people to Shanghai, but it's a last minute trip. And because you had just been to Tokyo, and because
was that the same year?
Yeah, and because we worked with
I think we went to Japan in February, March, and then this was like September.
It was,
and we had been working with Converse a lot at that point.
And then we went to Shanghai in August.
Yeah. Oh, okay. August. Yeah. It was really, really super hot. Yeah. But they basically were like, saw that we had been to like an Asian country, and were like, cool, you guys understand, and like, you'll be okay. We don't have to babysit you, essentially. And so we got offered to go cover this launch that happened in Shanghai, which was super dope. Like,
very
I'm
cool.
Super grateful to have gotten to go to Shanghai.
Yeah. And so those moments were really special and amazing. And again, like, not to sound like old people, but like those moments you had to like make it happen. Yeah. And now it's 2020 or 21, and like, you know, the way the internet and social media works, like
all you have to do is be cute and explode on TikTok, and you basically get hired for campaigns. So.
Sure, but our phones are good enough now to take good, like, it's so easily accessible and everyone can do it. Like I said, my mom has a TikTok, right? Like, you know, it's it was like you had to like, quote unquote, pave the way. And a lot of people sometimes reference us and they're like, oh, these guys are like OGs. And we're like, I never looked at it that way, that we were OGs.
No.
We just
I think there was a handful of other people that were doing it at the same time. And I remember when like I got an opportunity from a brand and I was like, I don't know what to charge them. They're asking me for my rate. I'm like, how much do you have?
Yeah.
You know, it's like a little like Mexican standoff situation. Like, wait, how, you know? And then I would like call up my one friend and be like, did you get asked for this? Yeah, I did. Okay, well, what do you know, okay, yeah, that sounds, okay, yeah, okay, great. Then we'll, you know.
We'll use
and
your
then
number.
Like,
yeah.
we constantly like tried to like push the envelope, you know, a bit more. I would just like, you know, I would try to just like throw out a number that I thought would be like enough to do everything we wanted to do. And like brands started saying yes. And like we got a lot of confidence from that. And that's one of the reasons why I was like, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna quit my job. Because like if I have the confidence and like can keep doing this, and like we had seen a lot of people who were like in the industry and like big players, and then they just dropped off and all got day jobs, and like we still see that over and over and over again. And now we're living in this time where like sometimes I feel a bit bitter about it. Like, you know, I saw a girl get like a really big brand campaign, like in their actual campaign, like a fashion brand chose her, and she's like, I think she's like from Mississauga, and she like exploded on TikTok, and then that's how she got it, like just like that. And I was like, that's amazing that you can like have that level of instant success now, because that was very much not our experience. Like we did not know that we could make money doing this. We, you know, had no plan or really like vision for it, other than we just wanted to keep doing the things that we loved and not like spending all of our money on it, because we were also providing like a window of coverage to our readers for these festivals, shows, fashion brands, whatever it was. Yeah.
I think there's a big difference between, I guess, the story you guys are telling and how you did it more so for the passion, for the love of fashion and music and those things, compared to some of the people today, where I do think a lot of people create TikToks just so that they can become famous.
Yeah,
sure.
or they're like,
and there's nothing wrong with
or
that.
they
Teach their own,
decide,
right? Like,
they
Absolutely.
get taught that like they can make money at it, and here's a formula in which to do so. And like, I don't know whether that's like good information or bad information.
I wonder, sorry to jump back. I don't know. I'm wondering if like it's just fair to each their own, but I wonder not if it's wrong, but I wonder if it's like if it sends the wrong message, because when you can have instant success overnight, just around anything. You're chasing it for the celebrity. But then when you become a celebrity, there becomes the expectation that you can convey, you have power, right? So like NBA players, for example, they take social stances on certain matters, and you have a big platform. But if you become someone big as a result of wanting to be famous, but then you start speaking to social matters, political matters, financial matters, kids are listening to you. So if you're chasing, maybe I wouldn't say it's wrong, because everyone should have an opportunity to be successful, but it's that fine line. If you're chasing it just for the fame, not for your passion, are you passionate about it?
Or for the money. Like, I see a lot of influencers literally just chasing that paycheck, and I'm like, I get it, go get your paper, but also like,
be true to yourself.
Right. No, but like you like
make something that's great. Don't just remake the same thing that other people have done.
Well, at the end of the day, too, it's a fine line. So on the money side, it's like if someone's willing to pay, you're worth what someone's willing to pay. So if they are willing to pay, that's one thing. But you know, I guess back to the point of like chasing fame just for fame, and then you have this like expectation that, you know, you have a big platform to speak. It can then perpetuate, not misinformation, but just you can perpetuate, you know, kids are looking up to you now, and then you're stimulating the younger generation. And now kids are all watching TikToks, and they're listening to people who chase it for the wrong reason. Now have to get a platform to make a message, and it's like this self-perpetuating cycle. And these kids say, "Oh, I can become famous," but you don't have either a passion or a story or maybe some strong message to articulate.
I see people literally making up their own story, and I'm like, what are you doing?
So, but that's
like,
why I'm just to the point of like, maybe it is wrong. I'm not saying I think that. I just trying to hash that point out because I never thought about it that way.
I you know, so just even telling this long story, it makes me think, because, you know, I remember explaining what I had figured out we were trying to do to someone, and him being like, oh, we are taught this in college. But social media is so young in its 11 years of like being in our face that like I often like say, you know, in like 10, 20 years from now, will we look back on this time and be like, oh my God, how did we let our people do this? Or like, was it like when doctors used to say, don't worry, you can smoke when you're pregnant, smoke on a plane? Like, you know, is this actually like, are we causing some harm? And again, like it offers incredible like opportunities to, you know, travel the world and see other people's perspectives and blah, 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 give people who have never had a chance a chance. But at the same time, you know, you hear a lot about, you know, the downsides, the dark sides, et cetera, of like social media, which we're humans. So wherever there's light, there's dark. But it's like, is my self-worth based on like how many followers I have? Clearly no, but I feel it. And we now have like science, quote unquote, but we now know that like there is like dopamine hits, there is like depression, like we know blue screens, like we know these things, and it's like pretty much like the worst drug, but we're cool with it, which is fine. But like I do sometimes, as someone who didn't have it, and then like was considered a wizard and then an expert, and now I'm just here, you know, everyone's doing it. Like I do sometimes worry because I've seen it grow, right? Yeah. You know, sometimes a tree, you know, like we planted this tree and it's growing crooked. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as that crooked tree doesn't like stab someone through the heart, right? Like, you know, or fall on a house.
You know, you mentioned some examples there, but yeah, maybe in 20 years we might look back on this as we look back on the opioid crisis in the
100%.
90s.
That's why I'm asking, like, is it wrong? Because like maybe having the foresight to say like, again, everyone should have a means to make money. If you are good looking or you funny or whatever, and you want to make funny videos and you get paid, all the power to you. So just to be clear, I'm not hating on any kids or adults who are famous on social media. But it just becomes a slippery slope, right? Because then you're almost like I don't know if demigod's the right word, but to some kids, you look up to that person who's got those funny TikToks. And it's like, wow, this person is so cool. And you become part of it, right? So, and then that person maybe shares something that that kid believes, and then perpetuates that and just keeps going. And that becomes ingrained in them. Because at such a young age, never mind a young age, people like my age are very malleable still and can believe something they see.
Well, maybe make it even broader, like in the Instagram sense. Like if you're a girl and you're growing up and you're trying to like figure out who you are, and you have all of these people to now compare yourself to. Like we were talking about this yesterday, like Instagram fucked me up good about my image and my body and all this shit. Like it did a number on me. It's still, you know, I'm trying to unlearn it. I'm in therapy and whatever. But like, imagine that, like for me growing up, I was like, okay, I had like magazines and like celebrities basically. And then now we have like you can like, and you wouldn't necessarily have seen what the people in your like group were doing unless you heard about it. Like you heard about it organically, and now we have access to see like everything that people are getting, what they're doing, what they're wearing, what they're doing all the time. And you're in this constant state of comparison, whether you want to be or not. Like you just even seeing it takes you to that part, and like that's really like that can be really fucking damaging.
Well, and a good example of this is, I read an article talk about that. It's like 40% of people have deleted a picture off Instagram because of not getting the reaction they were wanting.
Sure.
How many people have archived the picture? Probably 100%.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So if you think about this, if you're posting a picture on social media, it's because you like it.
Yeah.
Well, what changed from the moment you posted it to the moment where you think I need to delete it or I need to archive it?
Yep.
It's just you're not getting the reaction that you wanted.
The dopamine hit.
Yeah, think about that negative effect on a person, and a little different. We're adults here, but a 15-year-old post a picture that they love, they think they look beautiful.
They
that
feel
day.
confident.
They feel confident. They think their outfit
They're
is
so
fire.
excited
Yep.
about it. They
and
want
they
to
post
share
it, and they don't get that reaction that they're hoping to get. Well, what's that do to them? Right, and that's kind of like a social dilemma. I thought was going to cover that more. The documentary, it kind of covered on some other points. Which
I
is
really didn't like the dramatization part of it. I was like, can you just let the scientists talk?
I thought it was a little too much, but
Yeah.
not focusing on that. But the idea that if these children aren't getting the reaction, and teenagers and even adults, for example, aren't getting the reaction that they're hoping to get, that can cause a negative effect on them personally,
Yeah.
and mentally. And maybe in 20 years, where the science is going to be there's going to be so much evidence and studies done that can show that this is actually so mentally draining on people that we might look back on this and say, how did we let our kids post pictures?
I think 100%.
I-
It's like, how
Oh,
did
yeah.
I think without a shadow of a doubt.
How did we-
You can
it's
watch
the
us play
Wild
back
West.
and
Yeah, and
we already know the science shows that it's there's
Yeah.
negative
No,
repercussions.
but what if
Yeah.
we end up saying in 10 years, for example, they're going to say the age to use social media is 18, not
Yeah.
what's the age on it?
Well,
13?
it depends what it is, but most social media apps are 13.
So
right now.
let's say,
But
what if they
kids
say
are
10
like
years is gonna be
babies
18,
have
right?
phones in their hand and
people
they know
know.
how to
Children-
get on YouTube
It's
if they want.
crazy.
Like
Yeah.
it's
My friend who is, he's obviously he has 3 kids. He's very smart. The way he parents, we don't have kids, but the way he parents, I'm just like, man, you're dead on. Like he's so on it. But even he'll be like, oh man, my youngest or whatever, can already figure out how to hack into my phone to get to the YouTube he wants to watch, right? And that's amazing because you're like, sweet, in the future when it's cyberpunk dystopia, he's gonna be set. But otherwise, it's whoa. But yeah, so I think definitely we'll look back and we'll be like, how did we let that go so unchecked? But at the same time, human beings, I think about this in a weird way that less than 100 years ago, another pandemic 100 years ago. 100 years ago, people didn't have refrigerators, right? Not let alone microwaves and cell phones and projector TV, HD TV, whatever. They didn't have refrigerators.
Self-driving cars.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They couldn't freeze their meat. So we've come a long way that the human body. I'm amazed our human mind, rather, the social consciousness, the cultural values of us have changed so quickly in 100 years that no wonder our heads are swirling. And now we have then we put these supercomputers in our hands that literally you can do whatever.
you can do almost all of our
I
work
actually read
from our
this the other
phone.
day. Do you know that the iPhone is the number might be wrong, but the magnitude of it is 1/trillionth more 1/trillionth degree stronger than the computer that was on the first space shuttle that went to the moon.
Yeah. I mean, they
think about
essentially
that.
just hurled a missile.
And in fairness, to backpedal a little bit, not sound like a complete cynic.
Yeah.
In history, we've always everything's evolved. When the radio
Yep.
went to TV, people thought it's going to melt your brains, and then
Yep.
when TV went to internet, they
Yep.
thought it was going to melt your brains, and so forth
Yep.
and so forth. There's always going to be people who are easily influenced. There's always going to be people who.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it's not. I'm not saying it's detrimental completely because there is a lot of positive gain out
Oh
of it.
yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have that, the connection of
Yeah.
people being like, "Yo, I saw your pictures," or "Oh, sick!" When Instagram first started coming up, and people literally just had shitty phones and were using hipstamatic filters. We were posting high res photos, and they're like, "Oh, that's sick!" And we had so many celebrities take our photos and not credit us back in the day, which was we would
it was flattering.
email the
but also-
executives
Yeah.
and be like, hey, can you get them to add a credit, please, because that would mean so much to us, and obviously be positive for us, and you also kind of stole it, so
Hey, please.
and now we have whole Instagram accounts that are literally of things that people didn't create. They're just regrams, or I see people crediting Pinterest, and I was like, what? We're just so cool to just steal other people's shit, and it's just not okay to me as someone who was
Yeah, of course.
from the good old days
But
when we used to just be in the space, and if you were there, you were like, of course these are my people, because they were there, they got there from you know, liking that band, or, you know, they're in that store because they like those clothes, like, you know, and there was no other way to get there. It wasn't like someone just trying to emulate something.
Yeah.
But not to sound like a bunch of like negative people.
For sure, I was gonna try.
let's-
I'm just feeling nostalgic because of the
swing this
story.
around.
Yeah, because I hijacked that
Yeah.
at the point we were making.
Well, I think
earlier.
everyone can complain about anything, but I
Yeah.
think overall, like social media and like this digital world we live in is great. Like it is good. There's more positive than negative, and that we as human beings just need to figure out how to like regulate ourselves better. And to be honest, we always need to do that, and human beings do a really good job of doing that. So we'll be fine. Now in 2021, like it is different. Like there's TikTok. Like it's interesting to see like the movement and like social medias and how it's changed. And like, you know, we still have a website which gets traffic, eyeballs reading. You know, we have a Twitter that basically we just aggregate like, hey, we wrote this thing. You know, we have an Instagram, which is great because personally, like we actually love taking pictures. We've never called ourselves a photographer.
We've always had too many photos too. Like we always had, like, I'm glad that I have now a personal handle because now I can share all the other photos, because we were always like trying to give Sidewalk like the best stuff for such a long time. And then we like realized that we had like the archives of content we have are like crazy. Like the amount of photos we have, it's insane. And yeah, like Tristan said, we're not like going around being like, yeah, I'm a photographer. Like we're self-taught. Like we, you know, did
But
that.
after 10 years of doing it, you know, and I looked through recently I went through our hard drives, and I was like, we have so many pictures. I was like, we would be photographers. I've seen people with like 2 years experience, like be like, I'm a photographer. But, you know, we never said that. I've also never would call myself a sneakerhead for real, but I've seen people who are like, you know, the Instagram challenge, show us a sneaker that made you a sneakerhead. And they're like, this one, and it's from last year. And I'm like, oh, like, I'm not going to be like, you're not a sneakerhead, you need to put in time. But I'm like, okay. But, you know, I actually, upside to social media, I appreciate that confidence and like self, like, that person being like, no, this is what I am.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only been a year. Well, that doesn't matter. I am a photographer because this is what I want. And it's interesting that us who's like rode the waves and seen the different things come, like all things, the emotion, excitement, like we were happy. We quit our job. It was thrilling. It was new. And then it kind of, there's like a lull, like we actually became like in my mind, like too busy, too in demand, not popular, not whatever, just like too in demand for the different jobs that we kind of didn't lose the passion, but like it almost, the passion lost. It wasn't there.
Yeah,
we put it to the backside. We had to do the jobs. And then, you know, to talk about positive things, you know, let's wrap this up. Geez, stop talking, Tristan. But like, it's, you know, in an unprecedented year, never before seen, you know, a lot of like bad, but a lot of good came out. And it also interestingly took us the time because we weren't traveling.
Yeah, we
right?
got to a point, like, I think it was like 2018, 2019, where we were like, oh man, we were traveling so much. Like there were months where we were home for like 3 days just to like unpack, repack, do laundry, like just go. Or like we would be going, like we went in 2019, we went from Japan to France on a ski trip. Like, and then from there we went to like Lyon and Paris, like after, and it was just like a lot of back to back to back. And then got home, went to Vegas, then went to like New York right after. Like it was just a lot. And like, I definitely think, you know, there's some trips that I don't even remember.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, right. Like he has like a really good memory. Thank God. And thank God we also document everything that we do on Instagram, because like I would not remember. Like there's so much going on, and like, and all the while, like it's not like you get to just go on those trips and focus only on that moment. Like you're like, oh crap, there's this opportunity. I have to now be like negotiating. I have to jump on a call before I go to this event. You know what I mean? Like it was just a lot. And I think this past year has really taught us that like it was taking a toll on our health, like big time. And we weren't like focusing on how to like really lead with the gratitude angle, I think, of like, not that we were always grateful for these opportunities, but they were just like one after the other. It was like a snowball thing, and then we would like piggyback like our own personal trips onto that and like try to like continue to expand. And like I don't think we were doing it mindfully enough that we were able to appreciate it. Like in the moment we were like, I remember being like in Lisbon and thinking like, okay, where are we gonna go next? Oh, okay, well maybe we could just go, you know, okay, like, you know, and but like, what was I even thinking? I would kill to be there and really like immerse myself and like be able to put my phone away and not like need to take pictures of everything incessantly, and then have that as, it's been beautiful to reflect on that this past year, because I'm like, oh fuck, like remember that? Like I didn't post that photo, like it just went like the moment was just gone too fast. So yeah, we've really we've pulled back this year a lot and like really
Obviously.
focused on our health, and it's been really interesting. Yeah, no longer will I go to a party for free drinks. Ever again.
We are starting to near the
Yeah.
point where we got to start wrapping up. But this, you guys, I'm not gonna lie, this has been great because you guys told the story. We didn't have to tell.
I feel like there's a lot more that we.
I feel like we rambled,
Like
and
and
we do have
comment
some
for part
really
two.
we have some really good stories.
No,
for sure.
no, I love it. And
Well, I mean, we. To be honest, like, sorry, continue. I had to cut you off there. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask a kind of off-topic question.
I was just gonna say. Okay, so perfect. I was gonna say. Sorry, I was gonna say that like it feels like we. You know, I think where we left off ish was like the point. I was trying to think back where we digressed a little bit, and it was about how you guys were doing it. It wasn't about that like just instant hit. You can get like success overnight. Maybe around like 2014, 15, around that time when it was like starting to get traction, and you quit. And like Ricky said, we're nearing the end, but maybe then we can set up another one to kind of continue on from that, because like I'm sure is it fair to assume the last 3 years have a lot more stories that are included as well?
Yeah, because like I wanted to get into a lot of the stories about, okay, you know, tell us some cool parties you guys went to,
Yeah.
what some good concerts you guys
Yeah.
got the access to, because I know just creeping on socials,
Oh my
I saw a lot of
God.
cool brands that you worked with, a lot of cool people you got to meet. So we'll definitely get into we'll definitely set something
and
up.
like we haven't talked about also where this is going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What 2021 and beyond looks like.
Yeah.
And you know, we didn't even talk about, again, subscribe for the part 2.
Yeah.
Like we concentrated we started with doing music and fashion, and we have since, like, we don't really even cover music that much. And that's like an interesting story in itself, because whilst we love music, like doing it for so long, like we learned so much about it. Like we just like, it's,
I think we also got access to a little bit too much. Like we kind of, it's like a bit, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
We were saying that earlier. Like we were like, okay, how much money did we spend on concerts last month? Okay, it's almost like $200 or $300. That's a lot of money that was a lot of money for us back then.
Yeah.
And then like flashback to like 2 years after that, we were like literally like getting asked to go cover stuff, and like getting like managers reaching out to us saying like, hey, like please come, and like we want to do an interview, and we were like jumping on the tour bus and like meeting up with the band before, and like, and we got to a point where like I couldn't even enjoy being there in the moment, because I was like, had like my camera, okay, I just shot this, I'm like trying to fucking like tweet something out about that moment, and like my friends are there, and I'm like, I want to just like dance with my friends, but I like couldn't do that. I'm like, no, sorry, for the first 3 songs I'll be in the photo pit, but I'll come find you after. And like like we got to a point where we were like, I'm buying these tickets, like once we could actually afford to do that, and like luckily it was a business expense at that point, where like I'm fucking buying these tickets and I'm saying no to working, like because I just want to go back to that time where I could fucking dance with my friends and not have to worry about posting the photo and sharing it with everybody.
But before we wrap up, I got one last question. And funny enough, you said that because I quit doing nightclub promotions because it came to the point where the money I was making wasn't worth the fun I was losing out on.
Oh, we were never making money from like reviewing shows or
music
interviewing
doesn't
bands.
pay.
That was
When I
just
was,
like
when I was doing my
pure
nightclub
content
stuff,
for passion.
I was making decent money, but there came a point where, you know, George decides to show up at 12:30. So I got to go outside and get
False,
in.
I never did that.
Never did that.
And I also had my own hookups, buddy.
Yeah.
hey man,
Like,
I could get in the club
I was
myself.
not the guy that, because I knew how hard
No,
it was.
but
I'd not be like, hey, I'm outside and it's 20 people waiting here.
Yeah.
I'm all with all guys. Come get me now.
We would get the
No, I
messages
understand-
at
I
Lost
understand
and
how the
Found
rules
on a
work.
Saturday
Ladies'
night. Like Drake just walks in.
Yep.
5 guys outside. Hey, can you
Yeah.
get me in? It's like, tables are done.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't need a table.
Yeah. Well, now you're not helping
Sorry,
me.
how you getting in?
Yeah.
Like
I'm
what?
helping
It's
you.
12:30. Drake just walked in. Like I'm barely getting
Yeah.
in today. But my last question I want to ask, and answer each individually. How would you describe yourselves? Like, what's your career? Are you digital marketers? Are you entrepreneurs? Are you writers? Because at the beginning you said you guys love to write, and that's what you were. How would you describe yourselves and your career in 2021?
Oh man,
Answer differently. Yeah, don't
I am
steal each other's answers.
100% a multi-hyphenate. I always struggle with this question. Every time I get asked it, especially if it, it's like someone I don't know, because we are so defined by what we are, what we do. I now at this point, like I do so many different things that it wouldn't be fair to even like start naming them. Like I could, but I think there's this writer who coined the term multi-hyphenate, and it could mean anything from like, you are in digital marketing, but you also play the guitar. Boom, you're a multi-hyphenate, right? So I don't necessarily think that like the work you do should define you. I am a photographer. I am an editor. I write not as much as I would like to. I also, do a bit of bookkeeping. I do a lot of sales. I do a lot of like client management. I am also the model for a lot of the stuff.
She's a founder.
That's
the best word for it.
Yeah, I mean, like that's like our title officially. I'm the co-founder. He's the founder. But yeah, multi-hyphenate is the best way to describe it, because I'm always trying to learn new things, and you can't really be an entrepreneur if you only do one thing.
Wouldn't that be a founder as well? Because you're trying to find new things to do.
A finder.
You're a finder. Someone you found things.
Like that.
Yeah.
You discover things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Hawley's absolutely dead on, and I think we were talking about it earlier about, we don't call ourselves photographers and we don't call ourselves this and that, because words have a tendency to.
I forgot stylist too. I'm like
set design.
I definitely have like a little sprinkling of imposter syndrome in there too. Like I'll be at a shoot and then I'll be like putting together this set, and like my video guy will be like, yeah, wow, like you're, I know people who get paid to do this. Like you could probably get, here's how you could maybe get a job doing that. And I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily want to like do that, but like that's cool. I can add that to my
resume.
Yeah.
And I mean all
My
those
CV.
all those things in because we are everything, and words can pigeonhole you. So sometimes we're content creators, and sometimes we're journalists. But realistically, I think entrepreneur is like is the way to go, because it's such a ambiguous answer. Hey, what are you? I'm an entrepreneur. Oh, okay. Well, what do you do? Digital media, digital marketing. Oh, like what though? Like, we create, like, it's actually like my story. It's an onion where each question is just an answer that is another question.
And also, who's really like happy with their title?
Yeah.
Like if you're in
It's
like
your
a day job,
director of-
since we've talked so much about that, like I haven't had a day job for such a long time that like I haven't updated my LinkedIn. I don't know what I would put on my resume. Like I have no idea what my skills are. Like I really got to like work on owning them apparently. But like also just like doing it is one thing. And if I'm able to just do it, then why do I need to be defined by like any one title?
Yeah. And in that, the I guess to like cap that answer and to bring it all home, what we were saying about the 2020, 2021 kind of rediscovering some things, kind of like refining our passion, sort of refocusing. It also we've been trying to become comfortable with terms, because it's been such a long stretch, and there are times where like words like social media were new and cool, then they were bad, and then influencer was new and cool, then it's a bad word.
It was like
word,
tastemaker.
Right? Tastemaker,
before
and then
it was influencer, and then now it's content creator, because apparently influencer is like not a good word or whatever.
So we've always been shy of like labels in that sense, but
I don't think it's fair to like have one person be defined by that, especially if it's like, maybe it is easy for someone to be like, I'm an influencer if you literally started an Instagram with a certain aesthetic in mind, and like you're like, I'm going to go after like these brands, like cool, you're an influencer. But like that was very much not our path.
So yes,
we kind of got there in a more roundabout way.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We normally have two questions that we
Before we do that, I completely forgot to open this.
Yes.
Up.
Oh yeah.
You guys
Sorry.
gave us, is there?
I brought you guys a gift because you guys are homies. So
I will tell
you're
you guys
part
a
of the
quick
team.
I'll tell you a quick story before we like get to the wrap up too. So, and I don't even know if Ricky knows this. People were sneakerheads. I was like a hat person as a kid. I used to go spend all my money at the New Era store.
Good.
And I haven't bought a New Era hat in I don't know how long. So thank you. It's nostalgic, but also new and very, very cool. I will. And also, I just got rid of a bunch of old hats that I had in my closet this morning.
All right, there you go. You got some room for them.
There you go.
I know exactly what you mean, the New Era store too.
I used to go like, and when I look back at the hats I bought, I was like, how did I wear this? Like, this is so
yeah.
I bought hats
like,
that
wow,
didn't
lime
fit me.
green, like brewer's hat. This is cool. I would
like-
not be like, I'm like, get rid of this shit. I cannot.
I have hats
Black
that don't
is the
fit
only
me
color I really
just
wear
because I
now.
wanted them for the collection.
Yeah.
So it was on sale. I know it doesn't fit, but what if I shave my head one day? It might fit, or I can bring it to the New Era store in the basement. They can press it out a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for this. It's obviously amazing that you guys.
These are well stitched. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
George, did you get them at the new? Like,
They're real. No,
No,
we have
we-
accounts. We
yeah.
make these with New Era.
these are really well done, 'cause a lot of people
official-
order them, and
Yeah,
the
we-
stitching is very
Yeah,
like flat.
No.
We would have given
got the
you.
embossed,
We
eh? Or
have like
debossed?
beanies
Yeah.
and dad hats, but we're
in-
out of them right now, and we're
I
like
love
we
this.
also in the true
really-
pandemic like pigeonholing, I guess. In the summer, we were like, yo, we have so many hats,
is
and
dope.
like we don't know what to do with them, and we have also
the
so
dad
many
hats.
clothes and like just cool streetwear stuff that like people
that
probably
too.
would think would be really cool if we just like gave it a second life. So we actually started tie dyeing and ice dyeing them.
Yeah.
So next time we come, we'll bring you guys a custom. If you want a dad hat or a beanie, you can
Yeah.
just
Oh,
tell
dad
me.
hat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
I was like maybe we should bring them
Next
one
time.
dad hat, one snapback. I don't know.
We're also like very close to launching a coffee brand. So next time we come, we'll bring.
We're
you
just
some
gonna get all
coffee.
of our little plugs
Yeah, we're
in here.
plugging. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I
Yeah.
love it. Well,
So-
actually,
We should actually talk. Quick side note. You're doing coffee like
The
like
beans.
beans. So we have a coffee service on the
Okay.
side. Hasn't actually officially launched yet. Probably just.
There it is.
Yeah. We're actually like, so we do like office coffee type stuff.
Yeah.
Carry a lot of various brands. We do our own like private label roast, but it's because our friends are roastery. But we should
Yeah.
chat about that sometime.
Yeah.
Always looking for new
Hey.
brands to carry.
Yeah. It's
There you
called
go.
it's called Carry On
Entrepreneurs.
Coffee Club. Obviously a
Carry
play
On
on
Coffee
like
Club.
one of the things that we do when we travel is go to amazing coffee shops.
Yeah.
We are like obsessed with coffee and matcha and like the
Oh.
environment and like how cool the stores are, like especially in places like Japan and New York. And so
So you guys, like, I'll give
we
you
always
one-
bring back beans.
Yeah.
And so we were like, oh, we can't do that. Like last year we like didn't have the opportunity to go anywhere, and we like always like putting beans in our suitcases, like trying to find extra space. So that was kind of like the idea behind the name.
I'll give you guys one recommendation. We got to ask this question. I got to get out of here right after this question.
These guys keep talking.
I
Please
know.
let us go.
No, I love it.
If you guys like Japan and
Yeah.
Shanghai, so I did that. We both did like that whole circuit. I traveled for a while, but most underrated place in that area is Seoul, South Korea.
We were supposed to go
We were
in
supposed to
November.
go.
So
Yeah.
there's a coffee shop. The reason I was going to tell you
Yep.
this is a coffee shop called Onion.
Onion.
Best coffee shop I've ever been to in my life.
I'm writing that
Okay.
down.
It's probably, I remember because you.
Yep,
an Onion.
hey, man.
And there you go.
There you go.
It's one of the coolest coffee shops I've ever been to. It's
Okay.
in this old like looks like an industrial, like an old sketchy industrial
Sure.
building. Really cool.
Okay, Onion.
Seoul is if you like Japan, I like
Yeah.
Japan's, aside from being Greek and loving Greece.
Sure.
Japan, I think, is the best place in the world.
Yeah.
But Seoul is.
Yeah.
I was only there for like 4 days, and I really regret not staying
Longer? Okay,
Really
so for
awesome place.
episode
See, we were gonna
3,
go for
we'll
5
talk about
days.
that.
Guys, I feel like we even talk about travel.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
Part
That's
3.
why I was gonna say we normally have we have 2 questions we ask every guest, but I think we'll save that for part 2.
should we?
Yeah,
because
you know, like it's part 2's already happening. We basically
100%,
know
yeah.
it. Like this is
Well, there's there's story that
we're not even done.
and we're not even done the first question. That's
Yeah,
why-
did you ever even answer that?
Yeah, I don't know. What?
Well, should we ask one of them?
Yeah, ask one of them.
We'll ask one of them.
We'll ask Mike 'cause it's easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
it's the easier of the
Sure,
two.
sure.
Uh-oh.
If there was a movie about your lives, who would you want to star as you? Could be anyone from any point in time.
Arnold Schwarzenegger from the Pumping Iron documentary.
Shut up. Like
Well,
for real?
Well, no, but that would be like my dream. That's
a great documentary.
His attitude
Oh,
in
yeah.
that.
BDE. and
Yeah.
that.
Oh, what's the
pump.
one line he says?
The pump.
Or he's like, the pump is always like he's coming.
coming.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'm coming over
Calming,
here.
yeah.
Come over there. I'm on stage. I'm just calming everywhere. Yeah.
It's literally one of the funniest lines.
Honestly,
and
that's
honestly,
so
that
good.
I'm gonna make a meme of that today. That's what I'm gonna do tonight.
Honestly,
love
Arnold Schwarzenegger, like that guy was a
Yep.
Mr. Universe actor, governor.
Yeah.
He's
Still acting.
He's
Yeah.
a governor. Like he
Yeah.
went from bodybuilder
Yeah.
to governor. The only other person that's in that realm is The Rock.
Yeah.
To this day, every time we go to
He's my-
Venice in
I'd love to meet
LA,
Arnold
like to
Schwarzenegger.
Gold's Gym, I fucking think about him.
Yeah.
I think about how he
Gold's
could be
Gym.
there. And like one time we went to Venice, and there
and
was
Lou
like a
Ferrigno just
bodybuilding
pumping
like
it.
competition on this like on the
Venice
beach.
Beach, yeah.
Just doing
In
the
that whatever
flexing.
that little like gym thing, and they were like all fucking greased up, and I was like, oh my god, this is like pumping iron. We're
Yeah.
like 2019 version.
That's what I'm gonna
like-
watch today when I'm at.
It's
the-
a
yeah.
great documentary.
Oh, great.
The ending is the
You know,
best.
there's a book called the Arnold Schwarzenegger Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. My buddy of mine at university had it. It's like this
Sure.
big. It's every exercise like he's ever done.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yep.
Crazy.
Oh,
Sorry.
he's a beast.
So,
Sorry,
no, say
Holly,
it.
what was your
He's
answer?
a beast.
What was the question again? Who would
would you want
play
to star
me?
as you in a movie?
Probably
about your
like
life?
Chloe Sevigny or someone cool
that?
like that.
Yeah, who's that?
Oh, she's super
New
We're
York,
not
like,
tapped in as you guys. We're like
New York art
She's
star.
so cool.
She was in the movie Kids with Rosario Dawson that kind of started their career in the 90s. But now she does, I guess, a lot of movies like built into the system.
Okay.
So
Yeah, Chloe Sevigny. I remember we saw her in New York on the street when we went to the OVO store on Bowery, and like we saw her with like this guy on the street, and I was like, what do I do? Do I
It was
follow
very
her?
awkward.
I was like, oh my god, I love her so much. Oh my god.
Hawley
And she like
started
would
to
super
follow,
not appreciate
stop.
that at all.
Then she kind of turned back and Hawley stopped.
We have
like,
a
looking
lot
in
of
the
moments like
window.
that
So
actually.
that super bad moment where
Yeah.
the guy's falling down the hall. It's like,
Yeah.
it's 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Turns around and walks, didn't even ask the time.
Yeah.
So many of those moments where we've been in the same location as people who we idolize, and
That's so
I haven't
interesting.
said anything to them.
Yeah.
One time we saw Solange. She like walked out of the hotel we were in, and I was like, what do I do? And he was like, well, if you don't go, like you're gonna regret it. Like fucking go. And I was like, all right, I'm going. And then I like ran down the street, and I was like, oh my god, I love you so much. Can I please like? I had a camera. I was like, can I just take your photo? Because you look amazing. She was wearing this huge Balenciaga jacket, and like she looked so fucking beautiful. And she was like, no, sorry, but I was like, oh, but could we take a selfie? And she was like, oh, of course. And so like,
Oh,
there's
that's
this like
interesting.
photo of me, like the worst photo, but like to this day, still like the highest
though.
liked. And
So
then
they
we,
wouldn't let you take. She wouldn't
then
let you take one, but you
Yeah.
could take a selfie.
Selfie. Interesting.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
did
Is
Is there
actually
a reason
Well,
in, like,
maybe
in the
thought that she
media?
thought she was going to sell it to the paparazzis or something.
something. I don't know. Anyway, I was
Pops.
clearly a
The
fan.
Pops.
Like
Yeah.
I saw her when she
Pops.
didn't have crowds of people, but then we ended up like walking behind her, like we were kind
Awkwardly
of going the same
afterwards.
way, and I was like, I wonder if she thinks
It's
we're
like, oh my
stalking her. Oh my god, so embarrassing. We just happened to be going the same way.
And we had to go in a rush, and they were walking slow because they're like.
It was
they don't
Fashion
move.
Week. We were
So we're just
all
like-
rushing.
It was
Yeah.
like it was so weird.
You're just walking alongside of the whole way,
Yeah.
like 10 blocks.
Anyway,
Guys,
yeah.
This is
Yeah.
pretty much broken our record for the longest
Yeah.
episode. Pretty
Oops.
close.
Sorry.
So
Well, thanks for
sorry.
having
Yeah,
us.
Of course.
Love having you guys
Yeah.
on.
No,
We'll
no,
definitely-
honestly, guys, like the point, this is the point we say this very often. We want people to be sitting in a car ride up to the cottage or something, just listening and not being able to speak. And don't feel bad, because if this was us as a guest in the podcast, we would do this. We talk more than anybody.
Okay, good.
Like our friends say it's the same as sitting, like when we talk, they're like, it's the same as us sitting in a room with you, because we can't get a word in anyways. So don't worry. I'm sure people will love that, because we don't have to talk. They hear our voice all the time.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we'll line up a part 2
Yeah.
and probably a part 3.
We're gonna have
Sweet.
to at this point.
Yeah.
Well,
And
we'll line
honestly,
up.
like I've never had to. I mean, you always pay attention to people and talk, but like trying to keep like the branches made it so much more exciting. I was like, okay, where is this going here?
I'm like the
And, like,
derailer.
yeah, like it would
Tristan
break
will tell
off.
it with like perfect context, and I'll be like, "Oh, but these things that you're not mentioning that really
But
need
it's
to
cool
get
because it opens up
mentioned."
new
Yeah.
webs, right? I'm like, okay, like. Yeah, even the festival in Paris, like in France, like we didn't talk about that. Like, there's so many things that piqued my interest. But I was like, hey, do we start unpacking this?
Yeah.
Do we stick to this?
Yeah.
Do we unpack
Yeah.
that? Stick to that?
And like the best part was normally the first like 1 or 2 questions when you start the podcast are usually a little bit dry and a little bit
Stiff.
slow. You know, how you been? But that's why we do a rolling start, so we kind of just get right
Sure.
into it.
Oops.
Our first question.
this is a rocket ship.
okay,
I don't
yeah,
think you asked any
Within
questions.
5 minutes,
I think
okay,
you asked
gun
2
points in my head,
questions.
working my job, and that's how Sidewalk Hustle started.
Yeah.
Boom, mic drop
Guys,
later.
that feels that bank robber story feels like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I
Crazy.
don't remember everything that was said. I gotta
Ooh.
listen to this one
Alright.
and remember.
But yeah,
Okay.
guys, I guess lastly, if people want to find you, it's at
Sidewalk Hustle on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok. It's Sidewalk
_hustle.
Hustle.
Oh,
Someone
rattle.
took it.
No,
Yeah.
there's some
Yeah,
troll who
that
has
one's
it,
tough.
and he doesn't do anything with
No.
it.
That's
it's annoying.
Yeah.
We'll get it eventually.
Well, yeah.
We'll see.
SidewalkHustle.com. The coffee is Carry On Coffee Club. And then, honestly,
We're gonna launch Sidewalk Hustle Archive.
yeah, we have Sidewalk Hustle Archive,
Tie dye
which is
vintage remix stuff.
tie-dye
coming.
Love
vintage
it.
remix stuff, the hats. Yeah.
Love it.
Dope,
Yeah.
guys. This is
All
awesome.
right, yeah, guys, appreciate it coming on.
Thank
We'll
you.
And
line
we
Thanks
cannot
so
wait
much
to
for
hear
having
more
us.
about like where everything's
Yeah.
going to,
Yeah.
because obviously we,
Can't wait to
context
chat
there,
more.
but for sure.
I
No,
love.
we'll set
we
something
love
up
telling
again. We'll set something up
stories.
soon, for
Perfect.
sure.
If you
Yeah.
made it to the end, subscribe, review, just like he's
Thank
been
you.
saying this whole
Subscribe
time. And
Leave a comment.
We've never plugged that so many times.
yeah, he
like and
plugged it every
subscribe
time.
for
Like,
episode
part 2.
2.
Yeah, thanks for enjoying it. And that's it. Signing off, pals.
Peace.
Cheers. See ya.